I barely even know what today is. And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Thursday, August 25th. When I said that I didn't know what day it was, I probably should have looked at the date instead of looking after I had to read it, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I am Josh Engelman. I am joined by Adam Scher, and we are brought to you by OddsShopper. 6 games to talk about, just a pretty tame one for today. So we're going to be able to dig in deep to the Cincinnati Reds offense. That should be a real thriller for us. So be excited, everybody. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. We're going to treat this show with the excitement that I'm sure Scotty Scheffler feels, since he is quite likely to rake in $18 million in 3 days. Good for him. Adam, how are you?
Pretty good. Early slate, kind of not going horribly, not going great, but looking forward to this one. 6-game slate, kind of fun.
Yeah, I would have liked to get involved in this one. I'm going out to get some food with the fam after this. So getting a big bowl of Sketties, giant meatball, sausage. Nothing better. Nothing better. Favorite Italian food? Because I'm trying to kill time.
I mean, pizza, obviously.
That's Chinese, though, right? Or is that spaghetti?
What?
One of those two things aren't really Italian.
Really?
I think it's pizza. I could be wrong.
I mean,
but
pizza's
yeah,
obviously from New York and not Italy. But
the answer, I agree, is pizza. I'm with you. Spaghetti is a close second for me. When it's good, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Spaghetti. Chuck Deuces says spaghetti is from New York, so everything's just going New York style.
yeah, I mean, any kind of pasta can be really good, I think.
Red sauce or white sauce?
Red.
Okay. I'm with you there. Lasagna? Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Great cuisine. Why aren't more Italian people fat?
Aren't they all?
I don't think so. I think that's American Italian
Yeah.
more than anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see it doesn't feel like obesity is just running rampant through Italy. How do
That's
they?
true.
How
I mean,
do
they
dodge it?
probably do things outside because it's Italy and nice or whatever, and not here. They're probably not as lazy.
Maybe it's just so much. It's so heavy carbohydrate. Like if I eat a lot of spaghetti or something, like the last thing that I want to do is go do anything. That's a nap immediately. Less processed. Is that the problem? Is it better flour? They're not using Monsanto wheat. Is that what it is? Mainland Italian people are not very healthy, but Sicilians are. They eat a lot more seafood and vegetables. Yeah, I mean, that'll do it. They don't adjust the oil pH levels. I don't even know what that means. I mean, I know obviously what a pH level means, but
Are you thrown off by oil?
Do we adjust the pH of oil here?
I have no idea. I would assume that shit we put in food changes it.
There we go. Larry C nails it here. Portions.
That makes sense. That's
because we serve pasta
thing.
like fucking idiots.
Right. Yeah.
You go to Olive Garden, you go to Carrabba's or something, and they're just serving that thing by the 5-gallon bucket. Yeah, that's the problem there. You're getting like an ounce and a half of pasta when you go to Italy. You're getting a full box when you go to Olive Garden, and Olive Garden is certainly pumping out the pasta. T. McBee says gator tastes like sausage. Gator's good. We had alligator.
Did you ask if I've had alligator?
Yes.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah, it tastes like, I don't know.
Go ahead.
Meat.
I thought you were going chicken.
Well, I was thinking chicken, but like everything tastes like chicken.
Everything does kind of taste like chicken. Anyway, how was baseball for you yesterday?
Not horrible. I was winning the early slate for a while. I was winning it during the deeper dive. But then I got passed by a train and didn't. I think I ended up like 50th or something. Main slate, Dodgers got me sort of close, but basically just like lost a little bit. It's nice though. Qualifiers are over, so I'm not starting $2,000 in the hole every slate.
There you go. Larry, no, I do not go to Olive Garden. That's not for me. I mean, don't get me wrong. If I were a little baked, going for unlimited soup, salad, and breadsticks does sound appealing, but I'm not going there.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel like it's one of those, and it's like this with chain restaurants anyway. Like, I think Olive Garden is fine
Yeah.
if someone's like, let's go get Italian. I'm not saying, oh yeah, there's an Olive Garden, but like,
No.
I have no issue eating it if like that's what's easily available.
I'm going to enjoy what I ate, but I understand that it is Americanized and not as good.
Right, right. It's still better than like plenty of things that I would like make if left to my own devices.
I'm with
If
you.
it's like Adam, cook for yourself, or we're going to Olive Garden, I'm for sure going to Olive Garden every time.
In the chat for today, member of 11 months, that would be Olrat14. I assume everyone has already seen the name at the top of the leaderboards, but took down the relay throw yesterday for 50K, beating out friend of the program, Neil Orfield. So, Olrat, congratulations. Feels weird to call you Olrat. I don't know if that's your name or not, or if I should be reading that backwards. Are you Tarlo? I don't know. Congratulations, though. 50K, man. That's awesome. It's good to see.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome. Congrats.
I saw the screenshot from Neil, and I was like, oh, that's our logo in the top spot too. I think Eddie finished like 11th or 12th or something in somewhere in the top 20. So decent night for the Stokastic crew. You ready to break down these 6 games? I've killed 9 minutes just rambling about nothing.
Yeah.
Guys, hit that like button. I need some credit for crushing 9 minutes here because we still have 52 to go and there's only 6 games. So Ship happens, likes the Olive Garden. That makes a ton of sense. Your takes are usually bad. Phillies and Reds. Phillies, 5.4 run implied total. Reds, 3. Not a good one there. Aaron Nola and Justin Dunn going in this one. Justin Dunn pulling 1% ownership. Nola on the opposite side pulling slightly more at a crisp 60. And that seems pretty reasonable considering he and Jake deGrom are pulling 120 of the 200 possible percent. Do you see anything wrong with Aaron Nola's ownership at this point?
No, he projects behind deGrom, but that's the only pitcher he projects behind. And for context, we have him about 5 points higher than Luis Garcia and Kevin Gausman, who are third and fourth, but very close to each other. So pretty big gap there. Just kind of creates a tier where deGrom and Nola are clearly at the top. Really, really good matchup against Cincinnati. Really good pitcher in Nola. 28% strikeout percentage this year, 3.5% walk percentage, sub 3 xFIP. Really, really good pitcher. Fair price tag on DraftKings at 10K. On FanDuel, you get a huge price difference between him and deGrom. Nola's 10.8, so he's getting 42% ownership. deGrom is 12.5, so he's getting 26. Makes for an interesting dynamic in tournaments, but also just makes Nola look like a phenomenal value there as well.
I mean, we've already slightly talked about deGrom, where these guys are just pulling 60% apiece on DK. Does that change your thought process at all on a slate like this? Does it make you want to be more contrarian at pitcher in comparison to like where we usually talk about how we're just happy to take the best stuff at pitcher? Does that change for you on a day like today?
The gap is so big in projection that I think it's likely I just eat chalk on pitching and figure it out elsewhere. And normally, I mean, that's kind of what I assume I'm going to do anyway. But especially in a spot like this, it's just like the gap from popular hitters to not popular hitters is just not going to be nearly as big as the gap between these two guys and every other pitcher on this slate. And then on top of that, with it only being a 6-game slate, obviously these two are getting the bulk of the ownership and you're getting a discount going elsewhere. But like Luis Garcia is still 15% owned. Taillon's 30%. Gausman's up to 10%. So like within an individual lineup, certainly you can argue that Nola shouldn't be 10 times or 6 times the ownership of Gausman or whatever, but like you're also talking about a 5-point projection gap where that's going to be kind of tough to make up if you're trying to balance, projection and ownership basically.
I just want to talk this out loud right now, so it's warranted. Who is on the hill for the Yankees today?
Tyone?
Okay. Either I'm crazy or he is not in FC.
I don't know.
Well, I'm saying that just in case you like upload projections and see that you're not getting him or something later. I wanted to just put this out into the world that I ran a crunch and got 0.
Yeah, he's not in there.
And okay, so just keep that in mind, folks, moving forward.
Yeah, they don't have a Yankees pitcher, so that's good.
Okay. I just want to make sure that like I didn't miss something and he wasn't the starter and that's why I wasn't getting him, because if he's not actually in there, people need to be aware of it. Okay, anyway, can you get to Justin Dunn? He's the cheapest pitcher today.
I cannot. I mean, it's just I don't really even know like what the argument for him would be unless it's just purely that he's 1% owned and $5,700. The guy's never been good in his limited major league career. Going back to the start of the 2020 season to try and get like some sort of a decent sample on him. 196 expected ISO to righties with a 20% strikeout percentage, 251 expected ISO to lefties with a 20.5% strikeout percentage. The Phillies lineup is not very good today. That's, I guess, one thing working in his favor, the only thing working in his favor. But like he's still got to deal with Schwarber, Hoskins, Castellanos, Segura. You don't have Real Muto. You have Bryson Stott hitting third instead of Alec Boehm, who's not in the lineup. Bradley Zimmer, Sosa at the bottom of the order. So like it's about as bad a Phillies lineup as you can get, but it's still a tough park to pitch in. It's still a really bad pitcher in Justin Dunn.
Yeah, 5.64 projected FIP via Steamer is probably the worst I've ever seen. That was allowed to pitch in the majors, at least.
Right.
Woof. Well, we definitely need to talk about the Phillies on the opposite side because it's not just Aaron Nola pulling this ownership. The Phillies are first in ownership, second in our top stack tool, fourth in value. They are significant. Their top stack odds are significantly lower than their current ownership. Is this just a clear fade for you?
I don't really think so because they still offer value. I think it's obviously a spot where you're going to want to pay attention to like what your entire lineup looks like. If you're, going to really popular Phillies and then also going Nola deGrom, you're going to start to run into some issues. For example, the cash lineup that I crunched earlier, just using to use as a placeholder using the Stokastic projections, but it was after the Phillies lineup to come out. It was basically 5 Phillies, deGrom, Nola. If that's going to be what everyone is playing in cash, it's probably also going to be really overowned in tournaments. So you are going to want to pay attention to who you're playing with them. But the fact that they are so cheap, I think, does push them up to where they're being overowned in terms of having a 14% top stack percentage, 25% ownership projection, but they also give you a lot of value because you're replacing JT Realmuto with Garrett Stubbs, for example.
Yeah, it's just that's a jet. Like we don't really see gaps of top stack and ownership to be this big this frequently, but that is pretty sizable. I'm still getting to them. It's just a little bit lighter. Like even if you feel like you're coming in at their top stack percentage, you're still way light on this team, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, individually, I'm pulling up ownership now. So like that's the thing too. Like even Bradley Zimmer is projected for 19% ownership right now. Sosa's at 21%. I mean, I guess the nice thing is you don't have anybody projected for like 40%. Schwarber's the highest right now at 27. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually ends up being higher though. But like the whole team is just ranging from like 18% to 27%. There's no one or two guys that you can mix in there and say, oh, well, they're only 8%. So that'll offset some of it.
I certainly like the Phillies, and it's clearly a good spot. I mean, their implied totals tops on the slate. Justin Dunn sucks. I could see being a little bit lighter here than they're in a quarter of lineups. And I would rather have Nola than the Phillies as well. But that is going to be a very popular 6-man combination of full stack Phillies and Aaron Nola. Like if you've got the 5-man Philly stack, deGrom and Nola, you are in a hell of a battle with most of the field. Like you're almost I don't want to say like you're forced, but like you're almost forced to turn Nola into Gaussman, or one of those two guys need to become somebody else, probably.
Chuck Deuces said he found the show relief pitcher button, so hopefully that's true because I have no idea where it is.
Never mind, I see it. Where do you see it, bro? I don't see it.
Yeah, I'll say I spent some time looking for it the other day and couldn't find it.
columns. It's in columns. Quick view, additional options. Okay. It's in columns, additional options, and then there's 2 check boxes.
It's a really useful place for it.
Well, if you can just check it and it's always on, I'm also cool with that. And then it's out of the way and never there again. Like if it's no, mine never saved. Like if I had to check it every single day.
Yeah, but why would you want it always on? Because then you're just crunching lineups with guys that aren't playing.
I mean, the way that I use it, when I upload my data, I select just my pool and change the tab. So it'll show everybody, but I'm only showing the guys that are in the lineups anyway. I don't know. That's just me. No right or wrong answer, but appreciate you finding it because no idea. All right. The other one we've got here, can't imagine you're interested, but is there any reason you would want to go to the Reds? Is this slate small enough that the Reds are at least slightly appealing at no ownership?
I have a really hard time going there. Fraley's leading off at 2,700. He does have some power and speed. I think that would be the first guy I get to. You don't have Moustakas in the lineup either. You do have Senzel hitting second at 2,300 and Friedel hitting fifth at 2,200. But, I mean, this offense is really bad, and Aaron Nola is really, really good.
It is a really, really difficult sell. I've got him at an 88 WRC plus, which is pretty tough to do. Fraley is at 104 WRC plus for Steamer. No one else above 100. Solano at 97. I mean, they've got Austin Romine at 64, Barrero at 70. These guys are, they're not even a AAA team.
Yeah, they're insanely bad. Like there's not even outside of Fraley, there's not even guys that I can point to and be like, oh, well, Nola's really good, but this guy is solid. It's more like Fraley's okay. And then everybody else, you're just hoping that Aaron Nola has one of like the 3 worst starts he's going to have over the next 2 years and just can't, forgets how to pitch for whatever reason. Which like obviously can happen, but it's
Only other thing that I have to ask you, and I think we're going to be on the same page here. Cash options from Philly is probably going to be 4 or 5.
Yeah, in the placeholder I built, like I said, I had 5. It was
before you get there. If anybody you play in cash doesn't have deGrom Nola, write their name down and keep that forever.
Yeah, for sure. On this slate, like I don't know how you possibly play anybody else. The dummy lineup I built with the Stokastic projections had Stubbs, Hoskins, Segura, Castellanos, and Vierling.
I had Stott in 91%, Vierling in 85, Stubbs in 80, Segura in 62, Hoskins in 52. Like they're everywhere.
Yeah. If you get to Schwarber, that's obviously fine. If you get to Stott hitting third, that's obviously fine. The reason Stott's not in there is because Cabrera is 2K flat at shortstop for the Yankees. So that ends up being good value. And then Schwarber's not in there because Castellanos and Vierling take 2 spots, and then you have Aaron Judge. So that's the reason they're not there. That and that you have 5 Phillies even without them. But I'm sure you can make good lineups that have one or both of them also.
Anything else for this game?
Nope.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of the day coming up after this. You don't have to go anywhere. Stay straight on this stream. 6 p.m. Eastern time. MLB Live Before Lock, taking you all the way up until 7:05. But the day doesn't end there. NFL Live Before Lock then coming up at 7 p.m. I don't have a clue who plays in the NFL tonight, but it's definitely a team against another team. Packers and Chiefs tonight, along with Niners and Texans. All right.
Fitzpatrick Eagle.
What? Oh, really? Nice.
Yeah.
I thought you were trying to tell me that Ryan Fitzpatrick is the starting quarterback for the Eagles, and I was like, man, I don't give a shit about that at all.
No, I just was refreshing Twitter, and the PGA Birdies account says Rory Birdie, Thomas Birdie, Fitzpatrick Eagle, like back to back to back. I was like, okay, that explains why I'm now winning the Survivor again.
I assume that is really good for me. Everything was already really good, so it's just still also really good. But maybe Fitzpatrick's Eagle didn't get there yet, and that'd be even better. All right, here's the trivia question for you. This is all that matters. All of these teams have played 2 games. How many wins in the preseason do the Houston Texans have?
What?
I don't know. It's just above your face on my screen right now the records from the preseason teams. I'm not actually serious. I don't think that you care, and I certainly don't care.
I'm just really confused what you're even talking about.
Preseason NFL, man. That's where we were before you told me about Fitzpatrick's Eagle.
Yeah, no, I know, but like I don't understand where you're saying you're seeing the Texans record.
I had to pull up the schedule to see who was playing tonight.
Oh, okay.
So it just happened to be on the screen. Let's talk about your Orioles taking on the White Sox today. 3.9 run implied total for your Orioles, 4.1 for the Sox. Jordan Lyles and Lance Lynn. Lyles, 5% owned at 6,700. Lynn, 14% owned at 7,800. Which pitcher do you want more?
Lynn.
Okay. Makes sense. Talk to me about Lance Lynn going up against your Orioles. I mean, obviously, I would want Lynn too against the Orioles.
Yeah, so I mean, he's just a higher upside pitcher than Lyles. Yeah. I'll start with the negative, I guess. Lynn is back to having pretty massive splits between righties and lefties. That's been the case for most of his career, where he's like dominated righties and then not been as good against lefties. This year, he's giving up power, or some power at least, to both sides of the plate. 172 expected ISO to righties, 174 to lefties. But he has a 29.5% strikeout percentage against righties, only 20.5% to lefties. The Orioles do have a lineup that has 5 left-handed hitters. They're all in the top 7 as well. The only one that is not in the lineup that normally is Rougned Odor, which is not doing Lance Lynn any favors anyway. So he does have to deal with Mullins, Rutschman, Santander, Stowers, and Vavra. So as far as that goes, it's not a great matchup for him. But the $7,800 price tag is still just a very reasonable price tag, especially for this slate. And then the other thing that really stands out about Lynn is that so he's $300 more expensive than Jameson Taillon, and we have him projected for half the ownership. I realize that the A's in Oakland are a more appealing matchup than Baltimore in Baltimore, but we have Jameson Taillon projected for less than 1 DraftKings point more than Lance Lynn. I think it's pretty difficult to say that Taillon should be twice the ownership.
I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. I have Taillon by 1.8 fantasy points, but still Lynn projecting well. I got to more, like, even without the fact that Taillon's showing up in 0 crunches right now, Lance Lynn is the guy that I'm getting to after everybody else, after I get to deGrom, after I get to Nola. Like, that relationship in ownership right now is kind of weird.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say I like the Orioles here, and I think this is a really dangerous spot for Lance Lynn. But, same. You know, somebody in chat said struggles with lefties and is pitching in a park that's good for left-handed power. Completely agree. I don't feel confident in Lance Lynn here, but I think in terms of talent, he's very comparable to Jameson Taillon, and that's a huge ownership gap for 2 guys that are kind of the same.
Yep, I'm totally with you there. Like, yeah, it just shouldn't be 2-1, especially on a slate like today where we're already concentrated into 2 guys. Like, if you're not going to do that, then casting a slightly wider net looks a little bit more interesting to me. Let's talk about Lyles on the opposite side, though. 6,700. I mean, is the White Sox offense, like, which offense is better to you
in
this game?
Or
in this
like,
game, just like in life.
I mean, it's tough. Like, I think the White Sox lineup should be better.
Okay, I actually have it as the Orioles, which is rare.
I think they kind of suck. Like, yeah, I don't know. I think it's close.
Zebby Savala certainly helping at the ass end of that one.
He's actually been good this year, I think, but obviously not. You don't expect that to continue.
No, you don't. Like, is Lyles at 6,700? Is that viable to you at 5% ownership today?
Yeah, 120 WRC plus for Zavala this year in 156 plate appearances.
That's kind of crazy for a guy in Steamer that projects for a 69 WRC plus. Yeah. That's, I mean, double it up.
Yeah, Zips has him at 81. I mean, his career now is 91 even after that. So I don't know. Maybe he figured something out. But I do think Lyles is playable here. I certainly think he's somebody you can use at 5% ownership. 6,700 is a reasonable price tag. We have him with about an 11% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. Not a spot where you're going to be super comfortable, but you are getting a right-handed heavy lineup from the White Sox. The only left-handed bats in here are Gavin Sheets hitting 2nd and Yohan Moncada hitting 6th. Lyles has held righties to a 164 expected ISO compared to 205 to lefties this year. Only an 18.5% strikeout percentage against righties, but I certainly don't mind on this slate. You know, I want a lot of deGrom. I want a lot of Nola. I like the Phillies bats, even though, you know, they're popular. I don't mind in lineups where I need to offset some ownership with SP2. I think Lyles is playable. And one thing that is nice for him in DFS is that he does have a long leash and he's cheap enough where like if he gives up like 3 runs or something, but he's still able to go like 6 innings, you're probably getting a serviceable score out of him as long as you're like getting the hitters that you can't get to with Nola deGrom. That's kind of the issue is I don't want you're walking like a really thin line, I think, if you end up playing a stack that can pretty easily be paired with Nola deGrom and you're going Lyles, because like you really could just end up, even if Lyles pitches well, you could pretty easily end up 15, 20 points behind the 8 ball in terms of raw points. And then people just have that stack with, Nola deGrom instead of Lyles deGrom. So that's one thing that I think is pushing down Lyles ownership and also probably pushing down how much I'll get to is hitter pricing is soft enough that in a lot of lineups, you're going to be able to just find a way to get to those 2 pitchers.
The Orioles are behind the White Sox pretty considerably in ownership. They're behind in our top stack tool by a couple percentage points. But I think personally, in a larger field GPP, I would rather get to the Orioles today than Chicago. How do you feel about stacks in this one?
I like the Orioles here. The only thing that I don't like is that Mullins, Rutschman, and Santander are all pretty expensive. But after that, I mean, Kyle Stowers at 2K is going to help offset that. Terrin Vavra has second base and outfield eligibility at only 2,300. That offsets it as well. And Mullins is a good outfield option. Rutschman is always one of the best catcher options. Santander's got plenty of power from the left side. I think Baltimore is going under-owned here, given that Lynn isn't as good against lefties. And the Orioles, like, this lineup has always been good 1 through 6. Now it's even deeper having Vavra in there who projects as an above average hitter. Not a ton of power, but somebody that, is still productive. So I do like the Orioles. I think the White Sox are underpriced as well. The only hitter in that lineup above 4K is Luis Robert at 5K, and obviously there's no issue playing him. Gavin Sheets looks like a great value at 2,300. Moncada's a really good value at third base. But given the ownership disparity, I really like the Orioles in tournaments.
I'm with you. I got to 12% Orioles, many multiples over the field right now. Last team that I was this far over the field on was the Rays 2 days ago, which worked out well for me as I watched them score double digits in runs while I drove and didn't have any lineups. That sucked.
Yeah, I saw your message. I was like, I don't even know what's happening on this slate. And I looked, I was like, oh yeah, that would have been good for him.
Yeah, it would have been good because they were not owned.
Bogey-free round for Fitzpatrick, by the way.
I saw he... things are looking good. Sitting tied for third in the mini max right now.
Yeah, well, just keep in mind, I was looking like that last Thursday as well and ended up losing like 80%.
Right now, things are looking quite good for golf.
Are you talking for Showdown or for main slate?
Main slate.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's...
Oh, if we're talking for Showdown, then I would just say I won the monies.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, yeah. Because, yeah, last Thursday, I was just absolutely crushing, and then by the time the weekend ended, it was really bad.
Yeah, no, for the whole shebang. But look, once everybody's done playing, I'm right where I want. Like, this is a dream scenario for a Thursday.
Right.
It's also a long 3 more days.
Yeah, and no cut.
Right. I'm right where I want to be. I'm like, this is it. It's just like this actual tournament at this point in time. Now I'm starting a couple under par in comparison to the rest of the people. It's fitting.
Oh, cool. Fitzpatrick's my 4th highest owned guy. I wasn't sure how much I had.
I have like 52, 53, something like that.
Definitely
the guy I have the most of. That much I know.
Yeah, it's Wise, Rory, Poston, Fitzpatrick for me.
I don't have much Poston, which I didn't enjoy seeing. And I was talking about it in our Discord earlier today, which you guys should join, by the way, and come hang out. We were talking about it, and then the guy that I was talking to immediately messages me and is just like, "Oh, did Wise roll in a 31-foot birdie too?" And I was just like, "Come on!" Right out of the gate, just sinking monster birdie putts. Anything else we need to touch on here, Orioles or White Sox?
No, just to reiterate, I think at their current ownership, Baltimore looks fantastic in tournaments.
Completely agree. Have them a bunch.
How can you, let me see.
By the way, Tyon is back in FC.
Okay, cool. And so on DraftKings too, if you put deGrom and Nola together, you still have 3,650 in salary. So I think you can probably still just play like whatever Oriole stack you want. I'm playing around.
I mean, you probably want to get Stowers at the flat min.
Well, right, yeah,
right
like
away
Stowers is one of the guys
money
that I want anyway, and he's 2K flat. Yeah, so I mean I guess one negative to like the 1 through 5 Baltimore stack is You can't play Aaron Judge or Kyle Schwarber or anything because you have 3 outfielders in there. But you also can just like within individual lineups make Santander or Mullins be one of those guys and play somebody else. But yeah, if you go 1 through 5 Orioles with deGrom, Nola, you have second base, third base, shortstop open, and $2,800 to spend. I think that should be pretty easy to handle.
Oh.
And then, like, also, I mean, if you just make like Santander be Terran Vavra at second base or something, then you can just do whatever the hell you want.
Yep. Red Sox and Blue Jays, 3.9 run implied total for the Red Sox, 5.1 for the Jays. Cutter Crawford and Kevin Gausman. Crawford, 1% owned. I don't get the sense we're talking about him against this Blue Jays team. Kevin Gausman, though, 10% owned. Is he getting slept on today?
I think he's a good contrarian option. It just kind of comes back to the massive gap in projection between the top 2 guys and Gausman. We know that median projections in any sport aren't everything, and certainly not in baseball. But when you get a gap that big, it still just starts to become difficult for me to want to prioritize Gausman, even though I do think he's going under-owned. But he's up there with Lynn for me as far as favorite pivots, because I think Gausman, too, not even just comparing him to deGrom and Nola, and this gap has shrunk a bit since this morning. It was like 3-1, but Luis Garcia 14 to 15%, Gausman around 10%. I don't think they're very different either. So, if you are in a spot where like you can't quite get deGrom, Nola, Gausman's not a bad consolation prize. The matchup against Boston's not great, but it's not one that I'm really looking to shy away from either. You do have Xander Bogaerts back in the lineup after missing yesterday's game, but a 27.7% strikeout percentage for Gausman this year, sub 3 xFIP, about half a home run per 9 innings, doesn't walk guys. He's a really high upside pitcher, and on a lot of slates, he would be like the top option. It's just that you have not only Nola and deGrom both on this slate, but both facing AAA teams.
So I got to 30% Gausman here. Not anything that I hate at all. And I'm not doing that at the expense of deGrom or Nola either. So I think it's just jam expensive pitching and work my way around it, which I don't mind.
Right. Yeah. That's kind of, I haven't built lineups yet, but that's sort of the way I see it is if I can get over the field on Gausman without sacrificing deGrom, Nola, that is really appealing to me. Like if it just means that like I'm sacrificing Luis Garcia or I'm getting to less of the Tyone Lynn pairing, that's fine. If I'm just playing a bunch of like deGrom, Nola, deGrom, Gausman, Gausman, Nola, Nola, deGrom lineups, that's cool. I think the gap is big enough where I have a hard time thinking that I'm going to just be turning a lot of like Aaron Nola into Kevin Gausman, even though the ownership gap's pretty big.
All right. Well, let's talk Blue Jays bats. Number 1 in our top stack tool, second in ownership, and just eyeballing their ownership right now. This is a team that I kind of have to get to today, and I did. They're my second most exposed team. I think their ownership is warranted today. I like Toronto a lot more than I like Philly.
I like Toronto. I feel like I'm a little bit lower on them than the top stack tool is. Like we have them with an 18% chance of being the top stack on DraftKings, which is like 5 points higher than Philly and 7 points higher than the Yankees. I don't think Cutter Crawford's terrible. 134 expected ISO to righties this year, 300 expected WOBA, 20.5% strikeout percentage. I realize that you have to keep in mind that those numbers are against all right-handed hitters and not a string of above average right-handed hitters like Toronto has. But I don't think he's like a total gas can or anything. So like I like the Blue Jays. I think at their ownership at 16% aggregate ownership, they're a good stack. But I don't think I'm quite as high on them as the top stacks tool is.
I think part of it for me is just simply that righty porch and that righty park factor is just tailor-made for the top of this Toronto team. It's a sea of righties. It's a 120 park factor. And I just it feels home runny today, especially at like Gurriel, 8% owned. I was going to say Tapia and Espinal, both 9% owned, but those are also guys that I don't expect to be donging. So can't really say that, but no, they're if my choices are Philly and Toronto for the team that I need to eat chalk for, I'm eating the chalk for Toronto.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable. I like Toronto. I don't want it to come off that I don't, but I just don't think they're like head and shoulders better than the rest of the field.
They are not my most exposed team, so we will get to that team in a little bit.
I don't know which one mine is, but I'm hoping it ends up being Baltimore, honestly.
I mean, they were 4 for me, but I wouldn't want, like, that's not even the right way to say it, but like, I don't need them to be my most exposed team if they're unowned.
Yeah, I'm just hoping that I'm kind of, if I have a team where I'm just like, 7, 8x the field, like sometimes happens, I would hope that it's Baltimore.
How do you think what do you want to do here with the Red Sox bats against Gossman? Because they seem like fine. I don't want a lot. They've got guys into the double digits in ownership. I think they're just like, I think their top stack odds are exactly where I would want to be.
Yeah, I think they're fine, but they're also getting like twice the ownership that Baltimore is.
Yeah.
And I would just rather be on Baltimore. They're facing a worse pitcher. They have all those left-handed bats. Boston's lineup is very overall the lineup is fine, but it's skewed pretty heavily towards the three guys hitting 2 through 4: Endeavors, Martinez, and Bogarts. Gossman obviously is really good, doesn't give up a lot of power, doesn't walk a lot of guys. You're kind of just like, when you talk about Boston, you're just saying, Devers, Martinez, Bogarts are all good, but really you're just hoping that it's one of those 5 starts a year where Gossman isn't going to have it. There's not, like with Lance Lynn, and the reason I'm comparing him to Baltimore is because they have very similar top stack odds. With Lance Lynn, like you can point to a flaw in Lance Lynn's game and say Baltimore matches up pretty well with this flaw. There's no flaw on Gossman that you can point to and say it's good for Boston.
No, I'm with you there. Cash options from the Blue Jays, Springer and Vlad.
I guess, but no.
I know what you mean. Just like if they end up there somehow, don't freak out. But
right, but like I don't know how the thing is. I don't know how they would, because like I already said with like the dummy cash lineup I built, not that that's necessarily what I'd be playing or anything, but you have that outfield value from Philadelphia to where I couldn't even get Schwarber in, and I'm certainly trying to play Schwarber ahead of Springer if I can. And then at first base, I don't know how I'm getting to Guerrero over Hoskins.
I'm getting to them in basically the exact, like when I run the fully unencumbered crunch, Hoskins is coming up in like 52%. Guerrero is coming up in like 49%.
So using the Stokastic projections, I'll just run 100 of those.
Schwarber,
Hoskins,
I have like 5% ahead of Springer as well.
Hoskins is, it's running right now, but Hoskins is coming in somewhere around 80%. Guerrero is coming in somewhere around like 15%. It's either Hoskins or Guerrero, and then there's like 2% Yuli Gurriel. In the outfield, Schwarber's coming in like 50%, Springer's coming in like 25%. Gavin Sheets is getting in a lot of them now. He was someone that wasn't in there earlier, but he's sitting higher in the order than we expected.
Anything else in this game?
Nope. For what it's worth, the top projected Stokastic lineup now has 4 Phillies: Hoskins, Segura, Schwarber, and Castellanos.
Alrighty. OddsShopper, folks. If you're into sports betting, that's the place to go. And we'll start with the best part of it all. It's completely free for you guys. So just head to oddshopper.com right away. It's up on the screen right now. You can see what I'm about to talk about. If you're betting on games, you get every line right in front of you. Get right to the book. Get the best line possible. You don't have to worry about leaving any money on the table there. Me personally, I think the best section of OddsShopper is going to be with regards to player props. We're giving you guys the projection, the expected ROI, the expected win rate. Where else are you getting that kind of information for $0? I'll give you a hint. Nowhere. You're not getting that anywhere else. Not from a site like us. So go check out OddsShopper. I promise you, at the very least, it's just added information for you. But I'm pretty confident if you're in a legal state, it's going to help you out, and you're going to be slightly more profitable at a minimum just by using it and never missing out on better lines. So go check it out, everybody. Mets and Rockies, 4.8 run implied total for the Mets and staggering 2.4 for the Rockies. This is quite the combination of things. Jake deGrom going for the Mets.
2.4?
I have 2.4. Is it worse?
I'm seeing 2.
It could be worse. 10-8. Either way, bad. 10-8 for deGrom on DK. 64% owned. Ryan Feltner on the hill for the Rockies. 5,900 not owned. Is there anything that we really need to say about deGrom? I think he might have the highest projection I've ever seen for a pitcher.
What? He's like barely projected higher than Nola.
I got him at 26.4.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I was gonna say I think we might actually be a little low on him, but we have him at 23.
Yeah, I got him at 26.4. I got Nola at 23.9.
So here's the one thing I do have to say about deGrom. It has nothing to do with his ability to pitch, because I'm pretty sure everybody realizes he's really good at pitching. If you didn't know that, he is. Just take my word for it. But he did throw 95 pitches in 6 2/3 innings last time out. That was really good to see because in his previous 3 starts since coming back from injury, he had thrown 59, 76, and 76. I didn't think they were going to keep him down there, but there was a non-zero chance that they were going to just say like, all right, let's keep him around 80 pitches, get him to the playoffs, and then let him loose. The fact that he went 6 2/3 innings and threw 95 pitches last start is pretty appealing. Somebody had said in chat this morning that, maybe if the Mets are blowing them out, they pull him early, but like, obviously I don't think you should worry about that. But even if like they do pull him after 6 innings at 82 pitches, it's very likely that he's one of the top scorers on this slate. If it only took him 82 pitches to get through 6 innings, he was because it's not like, I mean, obviously it could happen, but it's unlikely that, you're getting 6 innings on 82 pitches because deGrom only struck out 3 guys. It's more likely that it was just taking him 3 or 4 pitches per batter to strike them out. So yeah, there's really no argument against deGrom for me here, especially on DraftKings where he's only 10,800. He's only $800 more than Nola. On FanDuel, I think they did do a good job of just making a huge price gap between him and Nola to where, in theory at least, maybe you have to sacrifice some stuff to get to deGrom. With how soft hitter pricing typically is, I kind of doubt that's the case. And I do love the idea of getting deGrom at basically half the ownership of Aaron Nola. But yeah, I mean, there at least you kind of have a decision to make. On DraftKings, it's just so easy to get to him.
Yeah.
And he's actually, and it's obvious it's only been 4 starts, but he might be even better than he's been previously in his career at this point.
His steamer projection, 37% K rate, 5% walk rate, 2.08 FIP, which is like peak Pedro.
Yeah. He's his average fastball velocity is at 99.4 miles an hour. Last year it was at 99.1. Prior to that, 98.7, 97.1 before that. So, I mean, he's averaging the hardest velocity or the most velocity he's ever had. But, like, he's also been hitting, I mean, I've seen him hit, I think, 102. Like, he's just ridiculous right now. And the bar for him, obviously, was already extremely high.
Yeah. He's in 85% of my lineups. That works for me. Phil still said single entry SP1, deGrom or Nola. I mean, it's deGrom for me.
Yeah, it's deGrom for me. So if that's a FanDuel question, kind of depends what the rest of your lineup looks like. I would like it to be deGrom, but the fact that Nola is projected for a lot more ownership means that it probably does matter, at least to some extent, as far as what hitters you can get to. If it's DraftKings, then both. You can call whichever one the SP1 you would like. deGrom, if for some reason you can only play one, I would prefer to get to deGrom.
707 viewers in here, just 87 likes. That's on me. I haven't asked. Hit that like button if you can, folks. Helps us out a ton. No reason we can't get up to 125 quite quickly. So do that. Ryan Feltner.
So one other somebody mentioned it and I'd forgotten. He's averaging 93.2 miles an hour on his slider.
I mean, that's just unhittable, right? I mean, yeah. I guess the answer is yes, given all of this data.
Yeah. And also, he's only throwing it 5% of the time. He's averaging 93.1 miles an hour on his changeup.
Can you imagine getting in the box for a 93 mile an hour slider?
That has to be terrifying. But like, well,
I couldn't make contact with a tennis racket.
Obviously, this goes with it, but like a 93 mile an hour slider backed up by a 100 mile an hour fastball.
Right. So you're not on, like, you're off balance to begin with.
Right. Like, you still have a speed change. You just have to decide if the mid 90s pitch coming at you is going to move or hit you in the ribs.
Yeah. Is this going to end up being 2 feet away from me in a split second? Insane. We don't need to talk about Feltner, right?
No. And so Trey Make said, do you feel like deGrom may be on a short leash like Houston did with Verlander the other night? I have no idea what Houston even did with Verlander the other night, so I don't know what you're referring to. But 6 2/3 innings, 95 pitches last time out for deGrom. Kind of had already covered that, where like even if they do say 6 innings is enough and pull him at like 82 pitches, it probably means he was just extremely good for 6 innings.
Mets bats 4th in top stack tool, 4th in ownership. Not a team that I'm getting to a ton of, but I certainly wouldn't mind if I did. I just don't love the park.
I do like the Mets here, just at their ownership. I don't love the park. I agree with you, but Feltner's not shown that he's anything special. Obviously, this is a huge park upgrade for him getting out of Coors, but 20% strikeout percentage, 1.7 home runs per 9, 4.2 xFIP to left-handed hitters this year, a 227 expected ISO, 215 to righties, and the Mets aren't getting a ton of ownership here. So like this is another spot where I like Toronto, but the Mets are getting 9% ownership compared to 16% for Toronto. And I just don't really think Toronto is 1.8 times as likely to be the top stack as the Mets are.
Rory got a streak. That's great.
Yeah, I meant to tell you that.
Sorry, I was just looking through golf stuff. Yeah, I did not get to a ton of Mets. They're in 5% of my lineups. I'm mostly happy with that, although I would be more than okay targeting against Feltner. One thing I know that I'm not going to get to, however, that would be the Colorado Rockies.
Yeah, I am certainly not getting to the Rockies against deGrom.
In the 150 lineups that I have selected at this moment, Sam Hilliard showed up in one of them. That is my Rockies exposure.
So somebody said they pulled Verlander after 6 no-hit innings. They did, but as far as the quote-unquote short leash goes, he still threw 91 pitches. Do I think that they're going to have a short leash on deGrom like they did Verlander? Yes. I think they're going to let him throw 90 to 100 pitches.
That's also a different team.
Right. But like my point is that like Verlander really didn't have a short leash. They just didn't let him keep going.
Right.
Like he did what he normally does. It's not like there was some unexpected pitching out there.
Yeah. Anything else for this game?
If deGrom throws 91 pitches, you're going to be happy whether he gave up 0 hits or not.
Yeah, for sure. Because he's probably got 8 Ks.
Right, yeah, at least. Nothing else from this game. I don't have the lines in front of me. I think Greg said this morning that the odds are longer, that deGrom is more likely to strike out. I think it was like 12.5 was the line than the Mets are to lose or something.
That's crazy.
I don't remember if that's exactly what it was, but it was something along those lines.
Some preposterous amount of strikeouts to Mets or to Rockies win. Gotcha. Astros and Twins, 4.8 run implied total for the Stros, 3.7 for the Twins. Luis Garcia and Chris Archer. Archer pulling no ownership. Luis Garcia, 14% owned at 8,800. I don't really mind the idea of getting to Luis Garcia, but I think I would just rather have Kevin Gausman instead, even at comparable ownership.
Yeah, I mean, Garcia's fine. The matchup against the Twins is okay. No Byron Buxton again, so that certainly makes the lineup a little bit weaker. Garcia is a good pitcher, 25% strikeout percentage, 3.76 xFIP, reasonable price tag at 8,800. I don't really think he should be more popular than Gausman, but maybe that salary does make a little bit of a difference. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if I kind of just end up not getting to that range and just like jamming deGrom Nola everywhere.
Yep.
Or even, deGrom Nola and then like cheaper than Garcia, whether it's Tyone or Lynn or Lyles or whoever.
I know we're not going to talk about Chris Archer. Astros are 5th in top stack, 5th in ownership. Twins are 7th and 8th. I like the offenses for both teams here. I'm actually a little bit over on the Astros, and I'm a little bit over on Minnesota.
I like the Astros. Minnesota, I mean, I think they look okay. I would still just rather play the Orioles, I think, at half the ownership. But there is some value in the Minnesota lineup. 3,900 for Jorge Polanco is a good price tag. 2K flat. Sorry for Nick Gordon hitting 5th. Certainly looks good. 3,100 for Kepler. 3,800 for Miranda. So I get why they're getting some ownership. They're just another team that has good hitters that you can pair with deGrom and Nola, and it gives you a high ceiling, even if it's not that likely to come through. For the Astros side, though, I do like the spot against Archer. This park we know isn't great, but you do have the Crawford boxes in left. You have plenty of right-handed power here. Trey Mancini hitting 6th always gets a mention in this park. No Kyle Tucker, that sucks, but you do have Christian Vasquez hitting 5th. So he actually, in the most recent crunch that I did with the Stokastic projections, was the guy that showed up in that top projected lineup instead of Garrett Stubbs for 200 less. Him batting 5th is a nice lineup bump for him. Gives you one of the better catcher options on the slate. Alvarez is always a top option. Bregman looks good. So I do like the Astros here. They're projected to go a little bit under-owned with 9% aggregate ownership as well.
All righty. Yeah, I got to, for Minnesota, I got right to the top stack odds, like 7 to 7%, a little bit north on the Astros. I got to 11% aggregate there. So just kind of getting to all of the hitting, but not really, like I'm not getting to Garcia. It's just going to Gausman. So that's where I stand for this one.
One other Mets point, Greg and I talked about it a bunch this morning, but Artie Van Housen said the Mets never hit well when deGrom pitches. If the Mets were always facing Ryan Feltner when deGrom pitches, the Mets would hit well when deGrom pitches.
Yeah, if they always were facing Ryan Feltner and weren't hitting well, I would look into that as somehow, is this an actual thing? But,
right. Yeah. I mean, the thing you have to keep in mind is deGrom is pretty frequently going to be matched up against another team's number one because that's kind of just how rotations end up working out. And then on top of that, for a lot of this stretch where they haven't hit for deGrom, they were also just a shitty offense. So on top of not hitting against good pitching, they were pretty frequently just not going to hit against anybody. Now you have an actual good offense facing Feltner. Like, it doesn't matter.
Almost as good as you know what? Equally as good as Jake deGrom is the deal that I'm about to tell you about. It's MLB DD. That is the promo code. MLB DD. One word, if you call it that. It's just 5 letters, all smushed together, all caps. 50% off your first week of Stokastic Plus. That gives you access to everything that we have. We're talking NFL, MLB, PGA, whatever auto racing is going on in that particular week. College football is here, and it's back for this Saturday. A couple nice contests, too. A lot better than the EPL contests that are existing for Saturday, which I took a steaming dump on top of during the process this morning. No MMA this weekend, unfortunately, but, you could just wait a little bit and get those lineups in on a Friday if you need to. Tons of content behind the paywall. Top pitchers, top stacks, top all sorts of different things across those sports. And you could have access to all of it using the promo code MLBDD. One big word. All righty. One game to go. And I like it. A's and Yankees. A's 3.1 run implied total. Yankees 4.5. James Caprillion and Jamison Taillon going in this one. Taillon, 29% owned at this moment. I don't love it, but that's what happens when you face Oakland, I guess. I just don't think this Oakland team is as garbagey as some of the other garbage that's out there. Do you like him at 29% ownership today?
I don't love the ownership, but I do think Oakland's really bad. I think it's a good park to pitch in. 3 implied run total for Oakland. Yeah, I mean, it's a spot. Like, I understand why he's getting the ownership. He projects well. Like I said before, though, I do think that given that he projects less than 1 point higher than Lance Lynn, even though the matchup against Oakland in Oakland is a hell of a lot better than a matchup against the Orioles in Baltimore, and I do like the Orioles as a tournament stack, I think that that's a pretty easy spot to pivot if you need a pitcher in that price range in a lineup where you're not stacking the Orioles. I think that, Lynn doesn't deserve, he deserves more than half the ownership of Taillon, but he's a good enough pitcher, not a great strikeout pitcher, only a 20.7% strikeout percentage this year, but 3.74 xFIP, 4.4% walk percentage, gives up some power, but pitching in Oakland against Oakland should help with that. As far as splits for him go, he typically is more susceptible to left-handed power as well. Strikeout splits are not worth really mentioning. They're about the same, but 203 expected ISO to lefties, 146 to righties. The A's do have lefties in their lineup. The issue is that most of them just can't hit. Seth Brown individually, I think, is a good option at 2,900.
How do we get to Seth Brown? Okay. Yeah, I don't hate Seth Brown there. I mean, tons of power. So never hate that. We're not going to Caprillion, right?
I'm not.
We are going to the Yankees in an aggressive manner, right?
I think they look good here. 4.5 implied run total for the Yankees against James Caprillion is so ridiculously low, but it just speaks to the fact that it's 65 degrees in Oakland, which is a really shitty place to hit. But you have so much power in this lineup. They're only projected for 7% ownership right now, which is, I mean, it's way less than Toronto and Philly. It's less than the Mets. It's less than the Astros. It's less than the White Sox. It's similar to the Twins against Luis Garcia. So I get it because they're pretty expensive. You should have Stanton back here, but outside of the guys that you really want to get to are expensive. Judge at 6,200, obviously. Rizzo at 5K, Stanton at 5,200, LeMahieu at 4,500 is reasonably expensive. But outside of that, you do get some value here. Like Benintendi's only 3,800. Cabrera, I mentioned earlier, is 2K flat with multi-position eligibility. So you can sort of balance out this stack with some value to where it's kind of like the Orioles, where it's not going to be that difficult to build a very strong lineup around a Yankee stack here. And Caprillion is a really bad pitcher. The only negative here is the ballpark.
Yeah, I'm getting to all of the Yankees in this particular moment. They are my most exposed team. 3rd in our top stack, 7th in ownership. Do I like being in Oakland for a hitting stack? I certainly don't. Do I think that it matters one lick for Aaron Judge or Stanton? I certainly do not.
Correct.
They're going to hit it out of just about any park they're in. So I like the Yankees quite a bit. Let's try to. We're not talking. Oh, you know what? I'll ask the question. Are we talking about the Oakland A's in this one? I know the park isn't great, but we do have Jamison Tyon at 29% ownership, which doesn't seem like. I don't know if 29% is warranted for his talent.
I like Seth Brown. I mean, I'd mentioned him before, but like the biggest weakness for Tyon is left-handed power, and the A's are running five lefties out there, 4 in the top 6. But outside of Seth Brown, I mean, Tony Kemp, Mackin, however you pronounce his name, I've never learned that one. Stephen Vogt, as a cheap catcher option is fine hitting 6th, but I think it's really more so just like Seth Brown individually for me.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't really get to too much here, and they are not owned. But at the very least, if you are the type of person that is interested in a stack against a pitcher pulling ownership, skip the deGrom Nola ones who are on a different level. Jamison Tyon's ownership is more to do with his price than his overall skill set. And that is the places where I'd be more likely to try to get a leverage stack.
I forgot that this was going to happen. So I typed in Oakland A's pronunciation, just trying to find an A's pronunciation guide. And so how if you type in a player's name, a lot of times it'll pop up just on Google with the phonetic. Yeah. So I forgot that I typed Oakland A's and not his name. And so it just says, Oakland A's. And I'm looking at it. I'm like, how the hell do they get to that? And then I was like, oh, that's the A's.
All right, let's sum it up. Favorite pitchers for today. This should be good.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Nola and deGrom.
Yeah. Who's the third best pitcher for today?
I think Gausman.
Okay, I agree with you. Favorite stacks. Now, this is where we can actually have a conversation.
Vimael Machine.
Go ahead. Excuse me? Gesundheit?
So,
Machine is the last one?
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite stacks.
Mets, Yankees, Orioles.
Stephen Leibowitz says, I lead the league in butchering names. Do I really?
I think that's Greg.
I don't feel like I butcher names. I either am very specific that I don't care to make the change, or I get dug in on Adam saying Alcantara wrong.
Yeah, I think Greg is probably the one that butchers them the most.
Okay. Yeah.
At least in baseball. I don't know about basketball. I feel like he does it in basketball too.
I mean, there's no way I'm whiffing on basketball. I listened to too much basketball stuff to just be in here saying basketball players' names incorrectly. It would bother the shit out of me. Did you give your stacks? Because I wasn't listening to you.
Yeah, I said Mets. Actually, I don't remember what I said. I think I said Mets, Yankees, Orioles. I know I said Mets and Orioles. I haven't crunched yet, so I'm actually interested to see where I get to, but I'm hoping it's Mets, Yankees, and Orioles.
If I need to get to chalk, it's the Blue Jays over the Phillies. 3 biggest stands are Yankees, Astros, Orioles. Boom. We made it 5:59 and 30-something seconds, 140 likes. Hit that like button if you can. Let's pull that number up to 175 before we get out of here. And then you guys, I don't even know if he's on the show after this, but you guys can make fun of Greg for saying names incorrectly. Good luck on everything you're doing tonight. Oh, no.
I just wanted to mention it in case it wasn't clear. Spurs basketball said, how about the Phillies? Yeah, the Phillies look great. I was just answering the stacks that I like in tournaments, including ownership and everything. But yeah, Phillies, if you can make it work, go for it.
There we go. Thank you, guys. Good luck tonight. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
That Syracuse ultimately is towards the top of your favorite bets. What other team do you think stands out that you really want to? What's up, everybody? Ben Raza, Matt Kajeski here, and we want to tell you about all the exciting things we've got at Betting You, our college sports betting podcast that we're going to be breaking down each and every day, giving you the picks for college football. You can find it on the OddsShopper YouTube channel. You can find it on anywhere you listen to podcasts. Matt, I know you're the college football guru. Tell the people what they can expect each and every week.
Yeah, we're trying to take a high-level, data-driven approach, looking at the spreads and talking about these games on a weekly basis. We're also trying to give you an information edge college football. There's over 130 teams. There's a lot to stay up to date on. So early in the week, we'll be recording this show, giving you everything we think you need to know about the upcoming college football games.
Absolutely. Here's a little sneak peek of what you can expect each and every week. We're going to be diving into games. We're going to be answering questions. We're going to be doing all the fun things here at Betting You. It is time to bet some actual games. And Matt, I want to ask you, last week we got things started, talked a little transfers, talked just the landscape of college football. The off-season Heisman market, is that something that you look to in the futures? And is there kind of that formula where we can get an idea of who might be live to win this award?
Yeah, I think this is a beatable market. It's beatable primarily early in the offseason, and it rewards people that are following the news. They know the landscape of these teams. But not only that, you need to know who kind of traditionally wins the Heisman. There are a lot of really popular players out there that might not have the best odds and are actually kind of dead to win this award just based on the position they play, their conference, or maybe their team just isn't quite good enough to actually take down that Heisman award. So I do think this is a beatable market and one I try to attack every single offseason.
You mentioned that Syracuse ultimately is towards the top of your favorite bets. What other team do you think stands out that you really want to put your money down on?
Yeah, Syracuse under 5 is by far the win total I like the most. We just discussed that, but under 140 is a crime. I think you should take that one for sure. I like Boston College under 6.5. That's at minus 135. Just a team with a lot to rebuild, especially in the offensive line. And they have a tough schedule. I think this most likely lands on 5 most of the time, so 6.5 towards the under is pretty solid. And then NC State, there's a very real chance they're favored in 11 games this year. Their win total is 8.5. It is minus 150. If you don't want to lay that juice, I think you could bet them plus 500 to win the ACC, but that game likely comes down to them versus Clemson, and you mentioned a very good strategy, which is just taking them on the money line in that game, which is probably around plus 300-ish, depending on how these teams fare up to that point. Those are my favorite 3. So, I mean, Texas, I just don't think they're going to be good enough to propel a running back to actually win this award. And from there, with running back, you're also kind of towing this line. You need them to be just a monster on the ground. Bell cow opportunity, like 300, 400 touches. Bijan has that in his range of outcomes, but the more you touch the ball at the running back position, the higher likelihood you get injured. And we can ask Bijan about this last year. He was out for the year. I mean, like week 8, week 9. So that's also a risk here too with Texas. Not to mention they have plenty of talent around Bijan. This is not an Alabama offense with Mark Ingram where they're just devoid of talent around him, but they have a solid offensive line and can pound the ball. The biggest question with Texas this year outside of Quinn Ewers at quarterback is their offensive line. They're not returning very much production. The production they do return is
I don't think you're ready for this jelly because my body is so bootylicious for you, babe. How about that? No?
No.
Yes, no. A little.
All right, what's going on, guys? We've got a little Stokastic MLB live before lock show. I am thrilled to be here with Eric, and we aren't on the schedule for quite as many shows anymore. And there's a point where it's like, oh, nice, I get to do a show with Eric again. And then like 18 seconds of talking to him in between shows, and it's like, I don't want to be here anymore. Why don't you tell the audience what you're just telling me?
Oh, no, I'm just going to say that now I have Paul and I don't have to deal with you as much. It's really nice. It's
That's
good.
not what you said.
It's big time. I'm a big time, baby.
I'm
a loser, baby.
Say the other thing you were saying.
Which one? That my body's so bootylicious for you, babe?
Yeah.
I don't think you're ready for this jelly.
Yeah, you said that, and I was like, I don't really want to be here anymore. So, guys,
sorry.
Was that hot? With that information.
Were we hot? We weren't hot for that.
We weren't.
Yeah. See, Jordan. No.
Well, but I just made you say it on the air. So now everybody was privy to the things you say to me in between shows. Guys, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are sponsored today by OddsShopper, the presenting sponsor. So we'll be talking about some bets later on in the show. Before then, though, we've got some DFS to break down. We've got a lot of good pitchers on the slate, most notably Jacob deGrom, Aaron Nola. What stands out the most to you about this slate, Eric?
Those two. They're in a lot of my lineups. They should be in a lot of your lineups. I don't know how. I mean, if you're building one lineup, I still think you're building with deGrom and Nola on DraftKings. I think on FanDuel, it's pretty interesting because maybe you take a stand. I could also see myself doing like a 50-50 type thing. I only built a couple out by hand for FanDuel purposes, but if you can find another SP2 to maybe get some more bats, maybe that's a way to go. But this is such a clear-cut slate where I'm north of 75% on both of those cats. I think it's pretty easy to do. I think you just differentiate getting to some different bats, and considering there are some spots, it's a small slate. And if you can get a couple of these super chalk spots to fail, I do think that there's some contrarian spots being slept on.
Oh, so that'll be interesting. I'm very interested to hear some of your contrarian spot takes. Of course, we've got a ton of chalk on the slate. Just kind of a quick overview. We talked about deGrom and Nola. They're going to be popular if you look at the stacks. A lot of people playing the Phillies. A lot of people are playing the Blue Jays. So we'll be hitting on all of that. But first at the top. So if I heard you correctly, 75% deGrom and 75% Nola for you. Is that where you're at? Just all of both of them?
I got more than 75% of both of them. Currently, I'm at 84% Jacob deGrom and 79% Aaron Nola. I just think it's one of those slates where there are paths where they don't even have their ceilings and they're still not going to kill you. Like, there are so many guys, just from a pure projection standpoint. I mean, we've got them both at Stokastic around 22. And then the next tier, like, you would really need some kind of a ceiling from Kevin Gausman or Luis Garcia. And I do think getting to some Boston and Minnesota makes a lot of sense on this kind of a slate. We'll get to that, but I definitely don't want to be getting to a lot of Cincinnati or Colorado on the other sides of it. It's just two really bad lineups. And Jacob deGrom, I mean, he's got, a 47.5% strikeout percentage. That seems pretty good. He's extremely good. And seeing like mid-90s pitches last time out, I don't have pitch count concerns. You know, I don't know if he gets to 95 again, but like 90 of Jacob deGrom is just so good against Colorado. And then Aaron Nola has just been phenomenal all year long as well. And this is one of the best matchups you can get. So it feels like a spot where I'm just going to get different everywhere else.
Have you looked at just the overall numbers for deGrom to this point this season? I know it's a limited sample size, but he's the best pitcher in baseball by a pretty wide margin.
He's the best pitcher in the history of baseball if he were to keep up doing what he's doing right now.
So, I mean, to me, because I'm in favor of evolution, right? I believe it exists. So with that in mind, the best pitcher of today, who's just considerably better than everybody else, I just think probably is the best pitcher that we've seen at any point in time. Now, has he had the best career of anybody? That would be a no, just because the longevity hasn't been there. There's a lot of injuries. But I think the peak of Jacob deGrom is the best pitcher that's existed. And just look at these numbers. 1.5 expected ERA, 0.64 FIP. His strikeout rate is 45.7%. So I know it's a small sample size, but let's also look at last year. 45.1% K rate, 1.08 ERA, 1.53 expected ERA, 1.24 FIP. He's just about impossible to hit. And I don't see another way around it. I've been contemplating if I just want to go all in on him for today. Like, I think that's definitely on the table. The only thing is, I think there is a chance, while albeit not something that I favor to happen projections wise, but it's not crazy to think Aaron Nola scores more fantasy points than him. And then there's, a cheap SP2 that's needed in a more expensive stack. But like you, I've mid 80% Jacob deGrom right now. He's my most exposed player by a lot, but I'm considering the lock button. Would you push back against that?
No, I probably wouldn't. I mean, for me, it's like I'll let the field try to get to whatever it is, 33% that's kind of open there. Said at 84%, I have a pretty healthy amount. I'm playing 150 lineups on DK today. So, I mean, I'm firing pretty good, and I feel pretty confident that Jacob deGrom is going to be my highest owned pitcher, and Aaron Nola is going to be my second highest owned pitcher. I think if you had to pick between the two, that kind of gets a little different where 10-8, 10K, like if you're just trying to only build with one and you're steadfast on playing Garcia or Gausman, or trying to get to like all expensive, like the Schwarber Judge type combos where, it's a very specific path where you need to have both of them. But even still, there's so many guys that are at the floor at like 2K, the under 3K. It feels like a conversation I've had a lot with Adam lately, where we're just like, all right, maybe you just jam some of these better pitchers because it's so easy to find some 2K guys that don't completely suck.
And one other thing, and we'll talk about FanDuel as well, because I do think the DraftKings conversation is different than FanDuel for this particular slate with the pitching pricing, because deGrom is so expensive. If you believe in the odds at sportsbooks, the odds, if you look at the alternate lines, the odds of Jacob deGrom having 12 or more strikeouts is more likely than him not getting the win bonus today. Like, that's at least using the sportsbook odds. So one thing I do think that makes sense today, tying in a betting angle to this, the Mets are massive favorites to win the game against the Rockies, which totally makes sense to me, depending what book you look at. They're as high as minus 500 favorites. But you could bet Jacob deGrom to get the win at minus 200 today. I think that's a pretty good way to reduce some of the juice that you get on the Mets. And if the Mets win, it does seem fairly likely that Jacob deGrom would pick up the win bonus, especially considering that in his last start, he was over 90 pitches. They gave him a week off, which I think was probably to get him 90 plus pitches again today. But let's talk about these two pitchers on FanDuel now, because here's where the conversation becomes a little bit different. Aaron Nola is still expensive, $10,800, but deGrom is priced at $12,500 on FanDuel. As a result, Jacob deGrom 26.5% owned. Aaron Nola projected for 44% ownership on FanDuel. Eric, I know you said right before you were hand building some FanDuel lineups. Do you prefer deGrom or Nola, with all things being considered, the ownership and the salary?
Yeah, I'm kind of a walking contradiction. So Prize Picks uses FanDuel scoring, and 48.5 is the number for that projection. I am shorting that, even over on Prize Picks. That is a massive, massive number. Shorted it last time out, got very fortunate that he gave up a sixth inning extra run to the Atlanta to be able to cover that one. I see EMAC in the chat. He knows what I'm talking about. That was quite a sweat. But for FanDuel today, if you're going to give me an 18% disparity between him and Nola, I'll take Jacob deGrom pretty much every single time. Does it end up being that kind of a number? Like if it were 35 and 35, then $1,700 can definitely go to work in terms of bats. Aaron Nola would be the guy I would want, just all things being not equal in terms of salary. But straight up with the ownership that we're looking at, I don't know how you don't land on Jacob deGrom if I'm building one lineup over there.
Yeah, especially with the big ownership gap. I mean, I think that Jacob deGrom, one thing that does make it maybe a little bit hard to project, and why I think we might be a little bit low on him, is that the pitch count overall has been low for him for the season. Last time was only the first time we've seen him really get a full workload. But I do think that that's what we're going to see again. I know you said at the start that maybe we don't see the 94, 95 pitches again. But I feel pretty good that we are getting 90 plus, maybe over 100 is a little bit of a stretch. But if I was to ask you how many innings has he pitched today, what would be your best guess?
Let's say 6 1/3.
Okay. The over under at Sportsbooks is 18.5 outs. So that would be pretty close. Shit.
Okay.
I'm going to give him 7 innings today. That's where I think, mostly because I think this is just such a bad Rockies lineup against right-handed pitching. We got the extra rest for deGrom as well. So I'm going to say 7 innings is my best guess. He's also been crazy efficient this year because he doesn't walk anybody. His numbers are so impeccable across the board. Like, what is this? A 45.7% strikeout rate and a 1.2% walk rate?
I was going to say my favorite thing you didn't even list off when you did that entire barrage of reading off Jacob deGrom stats. He's walked 1 batter so far this year. 1. Do you know how insane that is to have a strikeout rate? There's so many guys in baseball. I mean, I do Lindy's Leans, Likes, and Locks over on OddsShopper every single night, breaking it down. There are so many pitchers that get randomly called up, or guys who are like bottom end starters who have almost identical K rates to walk rates. We're talking like a Marco Gonzalez, like a 13% K rate, and then they have a walk rate that's almost identical to it. To have like a nearly 50% strikeout rate and a 1% walk rate is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen, even through just 4 starts this year.
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what Corbin Burns did last year, but with an even higher strikeout rate. Do you remember Burns went like 8 starts last year before he walked somebody? It was total craziness. He's been good this year, not nearly as good as he was last year though. Like the walks that he had to strikeouts to open the year was crazy, and deGrom's doing that, but to even a crazier extent this year. So I know we talked a lot about the 2 top pitchers on the slate, but they're the 2 players that I'm going to have the most ownership to, 2 players that Eric's going to have the most ownership to. So I did think it warranted more discussion. If you guys have any questions about anything else on the slate, or if you have more questions about deGrom and Nola, at me in the Discord channel where we answer all your questions. Or if you have other stuff, Seth, if you want to troll me again today, message me in Discord. I got my phone right here. I'll be answering those. If you guys want access to our Discord channel, as well as all of the tools we have for MLB DFS and every single other DFS sport out there, you can sign up for a Stokastic Plus Platinum Pass right now using the promo code MLB Live to get 50% off your first week of a package. Stop guessing, start winning. Join Stokastic Plus today. So it seems that you and I are both pretty heavily getting to Aaron Nola and Jacob deGrom, but I'm curious, what other pitchers stand out to you, if any, today?
Yeah, that's probably the right way of saying it. They don't really stand out to me. Luis Garcia, there's enough guys in this Twins lineup. Is it way down without Byron Buxton? Sure is, but Luis Garcia would make a lot of sense, as would Kevin Gausman going up against Boston. And, you know, Boston isn't actively all that good. They can't really do a whole lot to change the complexion of their season going forward between now and the end of the year, with as good as the AL East is. So Kevin Gausman, Luis Garcia, but there's such a distant 3rd and 4th here for me that I'm getting to around 10% of both of them. That's kind of where the field's at with them too. I just think you get to a lot of those guys, you don't really play the bottom end guys, and you just play the best pitchers on the slate. And it's by far Nola, deGrom, Garcia, Gausman. I'm getting to around the field, but I don't really want to be toying with that anymore. I guess for me, the interesting conversation is seeing as much ownership is going to Taillon and Lance Lynn. We'll get there, but between Garcia and Gausman, I would probably lean Gausman, but not by a significant margin. Do you have a take on those two?
No, I'm a little bit underweight to the field on both of them. And earlier today, when we were doing the show, when I was doing the strategy show with Adam, Gausman was only projected for 5% ownership. And at 5%, I thought he really made sense as a contrarian option to put into, say, like Philly stacks, because I think the Phillies are a really high upside team today, but they're also going to be really popular. I don't feel quite as good about Gausman when he's picking up double-digit ownership on DK as opposed to the 4 or 5% he was projected for earlier. So now Luis Garcia, Gausman, both double-digit ownership. They're in my player pool, and it's kind of like, hey, I guess when Fantasy Crunchers runs my lineups, and if I just have that amount of salary left over, they're popping up, but not anything crazy meaningfully.
Yeah, not only that, but like for me, there's not really a need to, because I think, I mean, you have two very chalky spots, and then for bats, but then pretty much the entire board is open to you. And even amongst those teams, I think there's very clear-cut things that you do to trim some of the ownership. It shouldn't be too hard to play all the deGrom and Nola that you possibly want. It's kind of the route that I'm taking. I just slightly prefer Kevin Gausman between him and Garcia. For me, it just really comes down to like Taillon and Lynn. I'm getting to like none of, like almost zero of. I think I should probably get to a little bit more than I have. I mean, I'm around 5% on both of them, way undercutting the field. But part of it is just like I'm taking the complete route where I don't need to find any kind of savings. Like I don't think that getting to like the Phillies for sure are not cost prohibitive. You're going to see a lot of Nola and deGrom along with them. Toronto, which is the stack I prefer between the two. I think there's an opportunity where you might need to get down and play one of those two, but I still think that building some lineups before the show, and obviously, you know, I have everything in already, I'm not finding it all that difficult for me to be able to get to the top end pitchers. And why wouldn't I just take all four of those guys at the top end, as opposed to digging to Taillon, who doesn't have the strikeout stuff I'm looking for, and Lance Lynn, who's in a spot where I do think the Orioles might get after him.
All right, so I'm going to talk more about those guys in a second, but first, we got a very important question in the Discord. So, Eric, I don't know if you've been tuning in lately, but Seth is in a big rivalry with his wife's boyfriend right now. So he has messaged me, and he says, me and my wife's boyfriend are having a disagreement on the top stacks. He says it's the Phillies. By the way, Seth is on the Yankees. His wife's boyfriend is on the Phillies, though. Which is who's on the right side of this? Who's got the better end of the stick? Is it Seth, or is it Seth's wife's boyfriend? When keep in mind, this determines who sleeps where tonight.
I'll probably go the Yankees between the two of them, but wow, that's things have changed since I was off shows for like, I don't know, a couple days. You get back in here and now everything's changed. Jordan Klein, stoic, that's the same, but everything else is different.
Guitar Man 2547 said that his wife's boyfriend is on his wife, which I also think is a very good follow-up to who's on what today. So for me, I think it depends whether you're talking about cash games or large field tournaments. For cash game purposes, I think you want to load up on the Phillies today. Justin Dunn stinks. He is not only terrible, but he's coming off shoulder surgery. His velocity is way down this year. And he is Noah Syndergaard level at holding runners on base. If people get on base against Justin Dunn, they just run all over the place, just like hitters do against Syndergaard. So for cash game purposes, Phillies for large field tournaments, I think it makes more sense to be overweight to the Yankees.
That's what I'm getting at. Yep, I'm with you. And for me also, for tournaments, I mean, I'm taking a pretty aggressive stand against the bottom end of this Phillies lineup. I mean, we're seeing 21% coming in for Bradley Zimmer, who, by the way, you talked about how bad Dunn is. How bad is Bradley Zimmer? I mean, the guy with Toronto earlier this season had like under 1 wins above replacement. Yeah, he's fast. I mean, that's basically what Vierling, Zimmer, and Sosa are doing at the bottom. If they don't get on base, though, which is still pretty likely considering Bradley Zimmer, a 140 expected batting average. Vierling better, 258, and I am getting to him. But Edmund Sosa as well, 27.2% hard hit percentage. And if he's not getting on base here, I mean, these are just guys that I'm trimming for large field tournaments. You get Gavin Sheets, who's a bottom end guy that I like getting to a ton on this slate. Not to confuse a bottom end guy with with his wife, that's for sure. I'm sure that they're having some fun at the bottom end as well.
Phrasing.
Just I said phrasing, everybody.
Yeah.
But Gavin Sheets is more of like the chalkier option, so to speak, that I like getting to. Brett Beatty is there at 13.3%. I prefer both of those guys strongly as like your cheap end options to go overweight to in large field tournaments than these super chalky Philly stacks that you just know are going to include those kind of guys and have like 20% ownership on them. Just pass on Bradley Zimmer.
Yeah, so getting to the other pitchers, although first I have to address Bean Dude in the Discord chat said, at Ehrenberg, Greg, I don't know if question. I just don't think you really pay attention to these. Gotcha, because I read it. Paying attention.
There you go.
Here. Then we got some other questions in here also about our favorite stacks. We'll hit on those in a little bit. Also, Bama Metal messaged us in Discord. And these are the remaining expected matchups for Jacob deGrom this year. So tonight, the Rockies. Then he gets the Dodgers as the next start. That's a tough one. Then after that, Pirates, Marlins, Brewers, Marlins, Nationals. I have a feeling we're going to be playing a lot of Jacob deGrom down the stretch of the season.
Yeah. 14K Jacob deGrom all in. Like, it's not going to happen because DK's incompetent, but I love you, DK. I do love you, but like that's just incompetent pricing. To have Jacob deGrom even today at 10.8 and Aaron Nola at 10K in these respective matchups is like a broken thing to be doing. So a shout out to FanDuel for at least trying, but still you're getting the ownership disparity now between him and Nola. You basically needed to price them both up.
All right, so I'm going to put you on the spot with one thing because I have an answer for myself. I know, and to make it clear for everybody, Eric's made it known that the two guys he's pretty high on for today are going to be Jacob deGrom and Aaron Nola. He doesn't really like the other pitchers all that much, but if you had to pick a cheap pitcher to go to today, and he said that's the guy, who would you be pointing at?
I mean, it has to be Taillon by default, but then he's 25% owned. Like, I don't know. It's going to Oakland, obviously a massive upgrade for him here. And outside of the Sean Murphy, Seth Browns of the world, there's really nothing to be all that concerned about. Ramon Laureano remains on the IL. They traded away Bethancourt earlier in the year. Like, you look at this Oakland lineup, it's pretty easy for me to see how Taillon has a decent start here. It's just, he only has a 20.7% K percentage, and everybody else, I mean, even your Gausman and Garcias to go with Nola and with deGrom, they just have such significantly higher K percentages. They would take kind of an outlier performance for Taillon to be in the realm as them. So he's getting hit eject just kind of by default for it. Lance Lynn going up against Baltimore, I just have a lot of concerns. You and I both have for Lance Lynn.
Not anymore. I don't. We'll talk about that in a second.
Holy
Dude, he's
shit.
Fucking back. Lance Lynn is back.
Stop it.
His velocity all the way back in his last few starts. So Jordan, pull up the player comparison tool. Do it, J-Dog. Pull it up.
Don't call him J-Dog. It's really offensive.
So while J-Dog is pulling up the player comparison tool, I'm going to make a case for Lance Lynn over James.
You're embarrassing yourself.
Because there are going to be people who are going to be deciding, what do I do with my SP2? I don't have the money to go all the way up to deGrom and Nola, which, by the way, that's overwhelming what my lineups are. deGrom and Nola, chalk it pitcher. But if I'm going cheap for an SP2, we don't have that big of a gap between Jamison, Taillon, and Lance Lynn. Little bit of a lean towards Taillon in the player comparison tool here. So he's outscoring Lance Lynn 52 to 48% of the time. Very close to a coin flip, but Taillon's nearly double the ownership. So that's why I have a lean towards Lance Lynn on the low end. And another thing, too, that always stands out to me, I like to keep an eye on velocity numbers. His velocity is all the way back in its last few starts. His fastball velocity is right back to 94, 95 miles per hour. And the results have followed suit now for Lance Lynn. So there were some awful starts when he first came back. And it was somebody that we were picking on pretty heavily. Since the All-Star break, Lance Lynn, 28.6% K rate, 2.73 xFIP. Those are pretty damn good numbers. And when you also consider that the velocity is all the way back up, I just don't think it's a coincidence.
He pitches in the worst division in baseball by a landslide. Do you know his starts since the All-Star break?
Yeah, except that's not going to influence velocity.
I know it isn't, but it's going to impact results to a certain extent. I mean, you get Cleveland, which, again, not a good strikeout matchup. He looked really good last time out. So there's that. Detroit, Kansas City, Oakland, Cleveland, Minnesota, Cleveland. Like, he's faced a lot of the same opponents. It's the weakest division in baseball. It's really hard for me looking at a Baltimore team that has like lucky rabbit's feet or something going on. I don't understand Baltimore every single day. how they just continue to win baseball games and doing it with, trading away Trey Mancini, kind of just giving up in that regard, traded away Lopez to the Twins. A lot of give up that hasn't really even mattered. So Baltimore at the top end of the lineup, we kind of like them all season long. You get some of these lefties, Santander, switch hitter, Mullins, the Vavra character. You're going to see a lot more of Kyle Stowers going forward from the left side. I think he's going to be a lot better than we've seen so far from him as well. I don't feel all that good about Lance Lynn in this kind of a spot. Like, again, maybe you could talk me into him over Tyon, but considering I'm getting to around 5% of both of them, I'm definitely not giving the yay vote of confidence thing. At least if this were a slate where Nola and deGrom were priced appropriately, I think that this matters a lot more, this discussion point, but he's had a pretty easy walk. I don't even think Baltimore is really all that difficult of a matchup if we look at it just in terms of like, all right, if you can survive against some of the better lefties, which there's basically two in Santander and Mullins, he should be able to be decent, but is his decent good enough on this slate? I don't think so.
Yeah, and by the way, my bigger point is I prefer Lance Lynn to Jamison Tyon.
Okay, gotcha. That's true. And the tool echoes that, and it's absolutely perfect in terms of like, if you're going to be this close and then you're going to have, so if you have 52.1% as opposed to 47.9% for Lynn, but you're getting a 10% ownership decrease going to the better strikeout pitcher, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so in terms of large field tournaments, I think there's more upside with Lynn. And then also the fact that, I get your point about him facing easy matchups, but he's still done really well in the matchups. I don't think it's totally fair to ding him just because of that. So relative to his ownership, I'm very slightly overweight to him, and then I'm underweight to Jamison Tyon. But the majority of my pitcher exposure is deGrom and Nola. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to these pitchers?
I mean, if you're going to get really off the board, I mean, there's at least a path, especially with like Stanton coming back to town and everything else. Like I have 3% Caprillion. Like it doesn't feel good, but it's a fantastic ballpark, obviously pitching in Oakland. He has somehow given up just a 36.5% hard hit percentage this season. And you add Stanton back into this lineup, and that's just a guy that could strike out a little bit more here. So at the same time that you add just a massive bat here, Oswaldo Cabrera's had a 33.3% K percentage. He's been kind of middle of that order last couple. Aaron Hicks is terrible now at baseball. I don't even know if he'll be in that lineup when we get it out now with Stanton back here. But I do think that there's like a reason you could get to a couple shares of him. I didn't completely X him out of the pool, but legitimately, otherwise I'm like 1% Cutter Crawford, 1% Ryan Feltner. I'm not even going to have Ryan Feltner. I will X him out. It's just such a bad bottom end that you don't have to like get to anybody else down here.
So when I was running my lineups, I got to 2% Ryan Feltner, and that was the first thing that I was like, "Fuck this," and I unselected him. I want nothing to do.
Yeah, you're just throwing $30 out the window for no reason.
So I know there's going to be people that probably look at it from the narrative of the Mets never score runs when Jacob deGrom is pitching. There's a couple of reasons for it, which also something Ab and I discussed on the strategy show this morning. Number one is just the number one starting pitcher for the Mets. deGrom typically gets lined up against other aces, which is something that's going to make it harder for the Mets offense to score runs. The other thing too, for most of deGrom's career, the Mets have kind of sucked and had shitty offenses, and that's not the case anymore. They have a really good offense. This is by far the best offense deGrom has had behind him at any other point in his career. So generally, I would expect when they're going up against shitty pitchers, the Mets are going to score runs. I think that's probably the most likely case today.
It's incredible because I had that exact same talking point last night. Jordan Clyde, do you remember that talking point that I had last night? You never listened to me. Adam never listens to me. Greg never listens to me. It's fine. I'll just keep winning 30K every once in a while and go on my merry way. No big deal. Humble brag.
We'll go back about that the other day. True or false? Because you thought that I was taking a joke from you. Who made the joke first, though? Me. No, I've made the Kate Upton joke for like years and years and years, where it's like I did it.
She's the fountain of life. She's literally the fountain of youth, Kate Upton.
But are you on record saying it anywhere public? Because we didn't know each other before.
Yeah, Twitter. But we're talking like 17. Remember? So one of the greatest things that's ever happened on Twitter was when Kate Upton tweeted at the baseball writers that didn't vote for him for the Cy Young and said, "I thought I was the only one allowed to F Justin Verlander." That's the greatest. That's one of the greatest tweets I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, that is really strong. I'll have to dig that out.
You have to. It's one of the greatest tweets I've ever seen in my life. And that was like, because Kate Upton, obviously very attractive, but like once she tweeted that out, I'm like, that's an all-timer. That's an all-time woman to have behind you.
Put her in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Truly. I mean, if Justin Verlander's 45 and still has a 26% strikeout rate and is throwing 98 and striking out 10 Twins a night, yeah, you could probably do that.
I want every single performance answer that Justin Verlander's taking in every single aspect of his life. Give me all of them. Give me all of them.
You have to leave your house, though, then. That's problematic for you.
Stephen L. in
okay, don't acknowledge
channel,
that either.
He wants to know who the pitching bag of dicks picks is. So just, all right. So I guess this is just who is the absolute worst pitcher on the slate. We'll call it the bag of dick of the night. That is Justin Dunn for me. Justin Dunn is absolutely terrible. He's the worst pitcher on the slate.
He's the worst pitcher on this slate, but that back half of the Phillies lineup is trash as well. And so for me, my big fade of the night is just eliminating most of them. I have Bradley Zimmer, I have almost zero of. I have less than 5% Sosa. I have less than 5% of Stubbs. I have less than 5%. Like, I'm really taking an aggressive stand against some of those other guys that exist in the back half there. Matt Vierling I still have, so I don't want to say that I don't because he's 2K flat.
Rabashua in our Discord channel asks, always love it, especially in MLB, when the narrative is so clear beforehand. deGrom, Manola, Orioles, Yankees, Blue Jays. We can't actually play this and expect to win a large field. What the fuck do you do that's uncomfortable enough to win? So first of all, some of those teams you're pointing out, like the chalk is the Phillies. It's not any of those teams you mentioned. We're going to talk about offenses in a second. And I think there's a team that really stands out there as being the number one to get to. And to me, that's the Yankees that you just brought up in large field tournaments, because the Yankees are fairly contrarian right now. The Yankees are one of the lowest owned offenses on the slate. And I think the fact their lineup hasn't come out yet is going to play even more in our favor. And I don't know that most people are going to be aware that Giancarlo Stanton is likely to be in the Yankees lineup today. So moving over to offenses and answering the question that Rabashua has for us, I think the Yankees are the best way to differentiate in large field tournaments and put Giancarlo Stanton in those stacks.
Yeah, I'm going through my list of hitters here. Obviously I have a lot of a team that we'll get to here as well later. The Yankees are my third highest owned stack, but Cabrera, Judge, and Stanton are three of my top 15 highest owned batters. Stanton being the highest out of, Cabrera's a little bit higher right now. Sorry, I was switching between outfield, shortstop there. He has both eligibility, so that's great. That's why Cabrera's showing up a little bit more. But Stanton, yeah, just everything you just said. I don't think enough people know that he got activated because that lineup's not out, and that's a beautiful thing for us. So get to a lot of Stanton today. I really, more so than just about anybody on this slate, hope that he goes yard. Kyle Stowers would probably be number two.
Let's see. Where do I? Well, so I do think lefties against Lance Lynn still makes sense. It's just funny to me though that Rabashua was bringing up like, hey, these spots are really obvious, but at the same time too, I mean, the teams that you think are obvious are not that popular by the field. The Orioles are projected for 3% ownership. The Yankees are projected for 7% ownership. Those are fairly contrarian teams on a 7-game slate. So I'm overweight to the Yankees. I like getting to Orioles lefties. I think those are two spots that certainly make sense. And then we have, who was it? I want to make sure that I'm shouting out the right person. Oh, Swanson79 wants to know who our top two favorite single entry stacks are on DK. For me, one of them is definitely the Yankees. I don't know that I have a second favorite. It's hard because, by the word favorite, there's only one. You can't have like 6 favorites. But my number one favorite is the Yankees for single entry. That's who I'm going to be playing in single entry tournaments.
Okay. I have no problem with the Yankees being there. I said they're my third highest owned stack today. So I will not give any pushback there.
So what would be number one for you then to answer Swanson's question? If you were picking one team to play in single entry, so I guess we could do it this way. I said my favorite is the Yankees. Then you could give out your favorite. And then it's kind of like two favorites, even though by the definition of the word favorite, you can only have one favorite. But your favorite single entry stack, who do you pick?
Houston Astros. I'm getting to a ton of them going up against Chris Archer. This is my team. I have no allegiances when it comes to fantasy baseball. I play the numbers, and Chris Archer, 20.5% K rate, 11.3% walk rate, a 408 expected slugging, and a 43% hard hit percentage. He might not even be long for this game because he's really, really bad. And it sucks to not have Kyle Tucker in this lineup, but what you do get is you get Christian Vasquez at a catcher position batting 5th. You get Trey Mancini batting 6th. You get Jeremy Pena there. You even get Jake Myers, who's fast as all hell there at the bottom of the lineup. that's another guy that it's just like, for me, I'm trying to find some of these stacks where there's also pivots away from some of these Phillies players where these 2K guys, like Veerling's the one 2K guy I'm very comfortable getting to, but I'm just thinking about what the field's going to be doing, and I'm going to be doing a lot of the same stuff. I'm going to play a lot of Nola and deGrom, so I have to be very specific about how to play Philadelphia. And so for me, it's just not getting to a lot of 5-mans of them. I'm getting to the Schwarbers, the Castellanos, the Hoskins, those guys up top. Like, I'm more than fine to still get to a ton of those guys, but I have to be doing it with other stacks in mind. And so for me, it's like making sure I get to some of the Jake Myers at the very bottom end of this lineup, getting to some Yuli Gurriel batting second, who's had just an abysmal year, but he's batting second and he's cheap at 3,100 for DK purposes. I just think getting to a ton of these Houston bats when they're the 4th most highest owned stack here, and Chris Archer's been as bad as he's been for not just this year, but the last couple of years, I just think they're going really slept on. So for me, it's an aggressive stand on Alvarez, Bregman, Vasquez, Altuve, of course, at a position at second base where, a lot of people are going to be punting. I am making a pretty aggressive, strong stand for Houston.
And then one more thing, just because we're talking about our favorite stacks, and that also goes into a question we got in the Discord channel. Somebody had asked us about Houston. I agree with you, by the way. I like the Houston Astros. Scrolling through the comments to see who it was. Oh, it was Steven Leibowitz who asked, are we getting to Houston at all as a sneaky stat? Yeah, I'm overweight to the Astros. I think they make sense to get to today. Who do you think comes out of the Yankees lineup in favor of Stan with him returning?
Oh, it's good. I mean, there's going to be no Harrison Hicks. Cabrera can play shortstop. It might be Kiner Falefa. There's an opportunity for Cabrera doesn't Cabrera, I know he's had like 5 outfield assists, which is just a ridiculous amount for a right fielder who's played such minimal games. Again, nobody gives a shit about that. That doesn't help from a fantasy perspective, but I think you still see Benintendi in the lineup. I would find it very hard pressed that he's not still in the lineup. You're still going to have Judge in there. Stanton probably, he's got to probably be DHing, right? Like, they're not going to be that stupid. So I think Hicks is probably the odd man out for sure, but he hasn't been playing a lot as is. I think there's a path where you get Cabrera playing shortstop and then you have Kiner Falefa sitting.
Yeah, it could be. I'm curious to see what that lineup looks like. And I same thing. I'm just using our projected lineup. So
Andujar was never going to be in the lineup. Stop it. Stop it. And somebody just said Andujar. Andujar was never going to be in the lineup.
Well, he's not even on the big league roster, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, he got optioned, right?
Yeah, I'm almost positive he's not.
Somebody just said Andujar. That's just silliness. Don't say that stuff. I watch too much baseball. Don't do that to me.
Yeah, so the Yankees, here's the lineup we have projected for the Yankees, which is just what I assume that it is, and it's what I'm building my lineups around. So right now, we have it as LeMahieu, Judge, Rizzo, Stanton, Benintendi, Donaldson, Trevino, Oswaldo Cabrera, and Kiner Falefa. So we do have Kiner Falefa, and it looks like we have Gleyber Torres out right now. I don't know if that'll be the case. It could be Torres instead of Kiner Falefa. But we also, with the Stanton situation, everything is going on. We only have him projected for 1% ownership. That is a number that I am going to be way overweight to. Way more than 1% Giancarlo Stanton.
Oh, I have 18% of him right now. I have a lot of him.
Yeah, I'm rerunning some of my lineups right now. And let's see. What do I have? I don't have enough. I'm getting like 10%. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I have so much Houston that it won't matter because that lineup's going to come out more than an hour and a half before the game. So, like, I'm hoping the lineup doesn't come out forever because I have so much Houston that I'll be able to get to whatever comes out for the Yankees.
Yeah, forever's a little bit long of a time frame, but I know what you mean. But either way, so what do you think? What do you think is a reasonable, if the Yankees lineup was to come out in the next 10 minutes before lock? How much do you think Stanton's ownership would go up?
Like 5%, 6%. It's still a miserable ballpark, and people just, I don't know, maybe the field's gotten sharper. For me, it's just like, I want people to not crunch with him in the lineup, or I want people who are hand building in like single entry stuff. I want them to not be paying attention. That sounds like a lot of fun to me. Benintendi, Cabrera. I'm trying to think. Yeah, Cabrera's going to still be playing right field. I got to be thinking, yeah. So I'm just looking at this lineup on who's omitted. Pretty clear cut, though, that Stanton's going to be DHing.
All right, so let's talk about the Phillies then. This is the most popular offense on the slate by a really wide margin, both DraftKings and FanDuel. Everybody's going to the Philadelphia Phillies, and it makes sense why. Justin Dunn, he was my dick bag pick of the night, right? Which I don't even know what Stephen Leibowitz meant by that. I came up with my own definition. That is the worst pitcher of the night. Those honors I gave to Justin Dunn. So Justin Dunn, Phillies going up against him, 25% on DraftKings, 27% on FanDuel. It is clearly a good spot for them. I put up a poll on Twitter, which hardly anybody responded to. We're trying to figure out.
I did.
Okay,
I'm a good friend.
You did, but let's see. So of the people that responded, I put up who's going to score more runs tonight between the Phillies and Blue Jays. The poll came out pretty even, 51% Phillies, 49% Blue Jays. Small sample size. That was a shitty tweet. But we've got right now, in terms of the projected ownership, a lot more going to the Phillies than the Toronto Blue Jays. What are you going to be doing with the Phillies in large field tournaments when they are expected to be the most popular offense by such a wide margin?
Yeah, so I explained it a little bit, but here's my thinking. And I do want to get your standpoint because, again, I value your opinion. That's why I enjoy doing shows together. That's the nicest thing I'll say about you today. F off. All right, so
I feel differently about you, but it's okay.
Cool. Schwarber, Hoskins, Stott, Castellanos, Segura, Stubbs. I've torn. I still kind of took a major cut on him just because I do expect him to be pretty popular in those stacks from a catcher perspective there. And I'm taking such a strong Christian Vasquez stand that, I'll just play more of the better hitter. This bottom end, the 7, 8, 9 grouping of Vierling, Zimmer, and Sosa. Vierling, I think, is still unavoidable. I'm going to get to him a lot as a one-off, and that's just fine by me. But Zimmer and Sosa, we're talking about 21% for both of these guys. And they are so bad. I would much rather play Gavin Sheets. I would much rather play Jake Myers. I would much rather play a lot of these, Oswaldo Cabrera. I would rather get to everybody else down here, except for these guys who, it's not just that they're going to be popular as 21% respectively, but give me just the good hitters in this lineup going up against Dunn. And I just want to avoid these kind of stacks where everybody's going to have the same deGrom, Nola grouping of a 5-man with the Phillies. So for me, it just comes to really limiting those types of stacks because it's going to be duplicated so hard. And they're horrible major league hitters, specifically Bradley Zimmer. I might even just X him out of the pool. I'm that aggressively against playing him today. It's the same way that I felt about Raimel Tapia that day that he had a grand slam that was a pop fly, but that's a different conversation for a different day. I just think you have to find ways of being different for this slate. I think it's pretty unavoidable up against Dunn to have some exposure, but just give me the really good hitters and let me avoid some of the riffraff that exists on the bottom half of the lineup.
Yeah, so I have some of the back end guys mixed into Phillies lineups. By the way, so I'm way underweight to the Phillies as a 5-man stack, but I have a lot of them as one-offs in less popular stacks, like the Yankees, for instance. If I'm playing Giancarlo Stanton at 1% projected ownership right now, I don't think a chalky Phillies one-off bats are the end of the world. So I still get to a decent amount of Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber. And by the way, Nick Castellanos finally showing signs of life. He sucked the entire season, has been one of the more underwhelming signings of the offseason. So I have a lot more of them as one-offs than I do of them as 5-man stacks. So that's where I still get to a lot of these Phillies guys. But to the point that Eric was making before, and I totally agree, if you're just playing 5-man Philly stacks with Nola and deGrom as your pitchers, that's going to be really tough to win tournaments with those combinations.
I have way more Stowers than I should. No, you have the right amount of Stowers. He's now my highest owned batter as I just reran my lineups.
Oh, but is
Kyle Stowers, 29% Kyle Stowers now. Christian Vasquez, 24.7% for.
Is that your home run pick, Stowers?
Stowers, yeah, he's going to go yard. It's time for the first one. You can't get the first one until you get the first one. That's what I heard.
I'm not sure that's exactly how the phrase goes. I know what you mean, though.
If you ain't first or last. Hell, Ricky, I was high when I said that. You could be lots of things. You could be second or third. Hell, you could be fifth. They pay a lot of money for that.
Yeah, you've got to crawl before you crawl. Also, I think that's kind of in the same thing. But the way you got to hit your first.
You don't score.
How about this?
Until you score. Hell yeah, baby. That's American Pie. 2
homers today for Stowers.
Oh, let's just take it up a notch. Why don't we?
Yeah, I'm just one-upping you. He's not I'm overweight to him, but he's not my most rostered hitter. I have him. Let's see. Where do I have Stowers right now?
Sauer's going to be donuts. It's all right. He'll tie Bradley Zimmer then.
Yeah. I've read around 10% of him. He's projected for 3% ownership. I'm 3.5x the field. It's a lot more than the field has.
I love you.
By the way, that was before you said anything. Those were just what my lineups looked like. I had to scroll through to find them. I still feel like I need more Stan, though. Give me more Stan.
Yeah, I have a lot. See, that's the fun thing about also doing these shows with you where we talk through it. I already had, 18% Stan at my last run. It came down a tiny bit. I'm around 16%. That's just fine by me. Like, that's just fine.
All right, let's run. Let's see where I get on these guys now.
Again, I want to be kind of more spread out. Like, I think it's okay to be spread out in 150 lineups today in like a drastic way, even on a 6-gamer, just because I want to avoid all of those duplication Phillies paths with those two guys up top. Yeah. Until you score, T. McBee knows. It's so good. Yeah.
All right. Do we get any more questions in the Discord? If not, we'll start talking about some of the really contrarian stacks. And if we like getting to any of those, no more questions in the Discord. If you have any of those, throw those in at me. Also, shout out. If you guys are playing NFL preseason DFS, we're going to have a couple things. NFL live before lock, a little bit after this to cover the NFL slate. But also, if you are signing up for NFL preseason, if you're registering for contests, check out our projections. Matt Kajeski has you covered. I don't know who the hell is playing in NFL preseason DFS, but I do know if I was entering lineups, I wouldn't do it without the help and guidance of Matt G. And if you're signing up, make sure to use the promo code Herbert. That is like Justin Herbert, because that will get you your preseason NFL projections over at Stokastic for just $7. So that's a really good deal and a good way to finish off the preseason. That offer is only good for the next week or so. But the reason being is because then the NFL regular season starts. You don't want to be paying for NFL preseason projections 2 weeks from now. They're not going to do any good once the regular season starts, but $7 will get you covered for the rest of the NFL preseason. Still no Yankees lineup. I think this is good for Giancarlo Stanton ownership.
Do you have a lucky number, Greg? Like if you were playing roulette,
no,
if you're walking through Vegas. Oh, 6 is your number?
No, because who is a lucky number? It's like, what's your favorite color? What am I, a child?
Blue. It's my favorite color. It's very hurtful, the words that you say. They have impact and lasting meaning, but it's okay. You only think about yourself and how you feel. It's cool.
You know who might have a lucky number? Old Rat 14. Thank you all, Stokastic. I won my first relay throw last night for 50K.
Let's go.
Thanks so much for all the help. Except Eric, LOL. He said that at the end of the super chat.
Did he really?
I promise, 100%. Old Rat 14.
Oh, fuck you. Congrats, though.
Yeah, nice hit.
Well done.
Perfect.
Very happy for you.
Perfect super chat. I love it. Also,
Troll.
Why'd you ask me if I had a lucky number?
I don't know. It just seemed like nice because somebody was it. If Stowers double dongs, there's Clayton Askew. If Stowers double dongs, I'm getting a Twins Lindquist jersey. Just need a number. So I told him 19 because my numbers are 4 and 19. My mom's birthday, my birthday, and then 23, my wife's birthday. She's a 23, like you. She's the 23rd of May.
Jackie Treehorn 87. Greg is an old man, doesn't have any imagination. Not having a favorite number is not what makes somebody imaginative.
No, it's just another reason that you're boring as all hell. Like,
oh yeah, nothing more boring. Jordan Klein,
have some zest in your life. Have some opinions.
Jordan Klein, can you come on camera and tell us what your favorite numbers? Are you really opinionated? You know what? His is going to be 8 because he likes Kobe Bryant, probably. Is your favorite number 8 or is it? Okay. You're born on October 19th?
September 19th for me. Don't worry. Less than a month. You can wish me happy birthday then, as opposed to when I turned 40 a month ago or some crap, because you're, again, the worst person ever.
And do you have a favorite color, Jordan? Are you also an adult in that area? All right. So Jordan's kind of splitting the difference here because he has a favorite number, but not a favorite color. There used to be a radio show, Scorch PFG. So if you guys ever listened to Opie and Anthony radio, they used to make fun of this guy Scorch, who ran the worst radio show ever. And one of the bits he did on his radio show was just color and number of the day. And this would be a segment of his show where it'd be like, yellow 17. And then he'd take callers about it. Worst
weirdest thing I've ever heard. That's a really bad bit. My thing was just, I was curious if you just tried
to introduce it to our show. You're asking
no, I tried to introduce an interesting. I was just curious if you had a lucky number, if you had and then you turned it into me like Eric likes Crayola crayons and he's a little child, and because God forbid you're nice to me for one day of my life.
I do have to say though, these are the types of questions I would ask. Like if you go on a date and you're uncomfortable in middle school, you just sit at the dinner after your parents drop you off at the restaurant. You'd be like, "What's your favorite color?" And then you just discuss it as if anybody gives a shit. But do you have anything else? Do you have anything else that's your favorite that we should talk about?
I like steak. It's delicious.
Steak? Is that your favorite food? Steak?
I think so. Steak and potatoes. Yeah. I'm a Midwest boy.
What's your favorite TV show, Eric?
I mean, when I was a kid, like Lost was like, I loved Lost. And then I'd probably say Breaking Bad. I'm pretty chalk in that regard.
Fair enough. As far as, because you just mentioned the chalk, if we're going off the board with chalk, and I know that we've talked about some of our favorite offenses on the slate, but who are the ones that you like getting to that are not picking up ownership today? Because, you know, the Astros, they're fairly contrarian relative to the 6-game slate and their current projected ownership. But are there any of these teams that are really low owned that you like getting to tonight?
I like getting to the Twins. So this is kind of the segment that I was a little nervous about having. But if you go through some of Luis Garcia's numbers, the guy gives up some righty pop a little bit. 3.95 xFIP up against righties, identical K rates to both sides, lefties and righties, both, you know, he's over 1.3 home runs per 9 in that kind of a regard. The Crawford box is out to left, and you get some of this righty power from Minnesota. I mean, they've won many tournaments this year. I can't get away from playing over the field of Jose Miranda. I can't get away from playing over the field on Gio Urshela, Carlos Correa, even a little bit of Kepler, as bad as he's been there. And then Nick Gordon's 2K flat batting 5th. Yet another guy that I want to pivot as opposed to Bradley Zimmer or guys of that nature. So Minnesota going up against Luis Garcia here. I don't think it's as ridiculous as what it sounds like when you say it. Like Nick Gordon's already getting a little bit of traction here, but you get a good hitting, good power catching option in Gary Sanchez there as well. Like this stack just makes a little bit of sense to get over the field too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm also overweight to the field on them. It's hard to say that they're one of my favorite stacks or anything like that. But in terms of teams that are projected for less than 5% ownership,
exactly.
The only ones I'm really getting to, it's the Orioles, and that's more so their left-handed bats. And then the Minnesota Twins, and that's kind of it. Like, I'm not stacking the Rockies. I'm not stacking the Reds today. Are those teams that you're getting to at all, or are you also just taking those out?
Yeah, I have 1% Jake Fraley. That's cool. And then okay. Colorado, I have 0 of. No, I have 1 Ryan McMahon share. Look at that. I didn't think I was going to get to him, but I got 1 share.
If I have any of those hitters as one-offs. I meant as stacks, but I mean, obviously.
No, 0 stacks. Yeah. 0 stacks. Have fun, Sean's on. I know that's his jam. He's going to win all the money tonight. Jacob deGrom pulled in like the first inning, and then we're just toast.
Yeah, Jacob deGrom gets hurt, and then Sean's on wins all the money, and we cry all night.
Pretty much. That's kind of how it's gone. A lot. Happens a lot.
Swanson79 asked me, do you play more chalk in smaller field single entry? I play less chalk in small field single entry. And it depends how we're kind of categorizing it. But my lineup that I'm playing in single entry tonight, it's a Yankee stack. And relative to the field, like I think the Yankees would be even less owned in single entry than they are in large field tournaments. And if you refresh our ownership, we have the Yankees now projected for less than 6% ownership on FanDuel. On DraftKings, they are projected for right around 6 or 7%. Let me see where the latest number came up at for the Yankees. So the latest run, the Yankees are 7% owned over on DK, just under 6% on FanDuel. And that's in large field tournaments. In single entry, I think almost everybody's going to be stacking the Blue Jays or the Phillies. The White Sox, maybe to a smaller extent. I know we have them project for double-digit ownership. I don't think that's where people are going to go in single entry, though. So I think I'm probably playing a virtually unowned Yankee stack in single entry tonight. Like, I don't think that's going to be popular at all.
Yep. I really like that path. Yankees make a lot of sense. Houston obviously is my single entry team today, and like the $25 and a bunch of other stuff over on DK. I just really am getting to a ton of Houston, and that was never going to change.
Super chat from J Rowe. Happy belated 40th birthday, Eric. Happy birthday,
tired.
Eric.
I'm tired. I had a hard day at work. Just want to sit out and relax.
Hey, that's 40 isn't that old. Come on, you still got life left in you.
Not really. I'm pretty dead inside now. You've knocked it out of me.
Good. Then my job here is done. All right.
Mission accomplished.
All right. I think we're all caught up on super chats and questions now. Let's do some home run picks. Or actually, no, I lied. Let's do some betting picks over from OddsShopper. I'm pivoting. I was gonna do home run picks. We could tie this in if you have a home run pick you want to do for this as well. Butthole Jenkins isn't in the chat. I know we always message us. He wants some home run picks. I did give out a betting pick earlier. I went with Jacob deGrom minus 210 to pick up the win bonus. I also like Jacob deGrom over 18.5 outs. James Caprillion under 4.5 strikeouts. That's another one that stands out to me. Caprillion should never have a mark that's that high, over under 4.5 strikeouts. I think he's made 20 starts this year. He has 5 where he has 5 or more strikeouts, and he's pitching up against the Yankees today. What about you, Eric? Any bets that you like for tonight?
Kyle Stowers to hit a home run plus 680. Sign me up for all of that. You got in a bag of potato chips. 35% expected ROI in OddsShopper. 17% expected win percentage. Plus 680 for this dude. If people looked at his fan graphs, the ball is going to start to get hit hard and far very soon. I don't feel the same way I felt about Alex Kirilloff here from the left side. Rip to my boy. But Kyle Stowers, that is as good as of a home run bet as you will ever find on the board.
Yeah, I mean, we were saying before, Kyle Stowers, that's your home run pick of the day for DFS. It would also benefit you for purposes. Then those are pretty long odds. Let me look up Kyle Stowers. What were his minor league numbers this year?
Oh,
I know they were
good. The answer is good. I went through them last night. Let me just pull them back up here again. Get the raw power 55 out of 50. Team ranks 7th. Go ahead. You got it.
Kyle Stowers in 95 minor league games, 19 homers. He had a 131 WRC plus. As far as power goes, 527 slugging, 264 ISO. Showed a lot of power in the minor leagues. And Lance Lynn, even if I do think that he's the best SP2 option on DK today, it is more to do with because the rest of the options kind of suck. And he's still the one weakness that Lance Lynn has that's persisted throughout a lot of his career. Left-handed power. That could get to Lance Lynn. That is something that Kyle Stowers has in spades. Even if he only has an 11 WRC plus so far in the big leagues, his ZiPS projection the rest of the year, 107 WRC plus, Steamer 113. So it does seem like projection sources do like him going forward. So Eric, I'm going to back your home run pick. I like it. And it would also benefit my DFS lineups if it came through.
The other thing too is that we can't look at his splits right now. At least I don't know how to in terms of AAA. We know that he's getting the platoon. Like that helps right from the get-go too. So you see everything he has for AAA. You got to think that at AAA they're letting him face lefties every single time up too. It'd be kind of weird to platoon somebody at AAA who you knew you were going to call up and was going to be effective at this level. So you get some of those type factors into the sample size as well. That can only help getting to Stowers and assume that, that you could be seeing even better WRC plus for him at the big league level where they maybe don't always let him face lefties.
Yeah. And Stowers also, I wouldn't put too much weight. He's played 6 games in the big leagues. There's going to be some sort of acclimation process. So I'm not putting all that much weight into the 6-game sample size to this point.
Somebody said Eric Dong, pause, and then not Jake Myers. Nick Gordon Dong would be just fine by me, 5-hole, but it's kind of weird to me looking at Nick Gordon because he has a 491 expected slugging, which actually leads this lineup in terms of expected slugging. And I just don't think of him as like a power guy. And Fangraphs has taught me to think, or not just Fangraphs, Baseball Savant has really taught me to think differently about Nick Gordon. So yeah, 2K flat with the platoon there, even though I will say Luis Garcia, he's been better against lefties this season. So I'm not going as nuts with him batting 5th there as what I am with some of these other guys, Miranda, Urshela, and getting to them as like one-offs, like nothing over like 10% by any means. But as you said, you were overweight to them. I'm overweight to them. And it has more to do with like Luis Garcia, nearly a 4 xFIP against righties.
All right. That is going to do it for us, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Good luck today. And we'll see you guys back here tomorrow.